right, Justin Wing. Thanks for coming out.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's an honor.
Been great to meet you. Heard about you through Kenny
Mhm.
and Kenny's dad,
Yes, sir.
and glad to get you out as you out here to the range.
Yeah, no,
So,
it's been awesome. You've been a good host, and I appreciate your hospitality. It's been great.
so why don't you tell us a little bit about where you're from? Not growing up, but just where you're working.
Yes, sir.
Kind of go over when you started, your dates, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Okay. Yeah, so I work for the Van Buren Police Department in Arkansas. It's right north of Fort Smith. Some people know Fort Smith, and I started there. I got hired 4 months after I turned 21 in April of 2016. So I wanted to be a cop since I was little, and got to step into Van Buren right after I turned 21. And I've been there. I worked there till 2020, 2021. Briefly stepped out for about 9 months. I got a job offer in the private sector, and so I stayed as a reserve at the department. But I was out of law enforcement full time for about 9 months, and it was a great opportunity. I the it wasn't that I was lied to or anything like that. I was promised money and all this stuff that okay, well, maybe that'd be a good thing. But 9 months of that showed me that man, I wanted to go back and do what I believe I was created to do. And so I was very fortunate that when I went back to chief with my hat in my hands and hey, chief, are y'all hiring? He was like, what's going on? Is everything like, you good? I was like, oh, everything's great. Everything's exactly what they said. I hate my job, man. I want to get back. And so I got the opportunity to come back. And when I left the department, I did 4.5 years on patrol and then got moved to narcotics. I did narcotics for a year before I left, and then they hadn't backfilled my slot in narcotics by the time I wanted to come back. So super just fortunate that I got hired back, and then did right before, like 2 weeks before I was coming back to work. The captain that was handling the new hire stuff, or the rehire stuff in my case, I get a text from him that's like, "Hey, you're a FTO, right?" I was like, "Oh no." And I was like, "Yes, sir." And he's, "Oh, bad news, man." So we got 5 rookies graduating the academy at the same time. We need FTO. So Kate got back to the PD, spent another 5 months on patrol training rookies, and
Mhm.
got to step back in, and then back in my detective slot for, I guess, since 23, 22, somewhere there. So
Nice.
4.5, almost 5 years of my career was on patrol total, and then I've got just over 3.5 years in narcotics. So
That's awesome.
yes, sir.
Yeah. I went through the academy with a guy, Pete Walker
Okay.
was his name, and he was a officer. I think he is actually in Phoenix
Mm-hmm.
at Phoenix PD for years, and he left, went into I think he started a company. I can't remember what it was. I think it may have been waterbed. I think he got into
Oh yeah.
waterbeds, and like killed it.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me he used to buy he's like, yeah, I used to buy cars on my credit card,
Yeah.
and he got to a point to where he was 45, and he wanted to go back and do, like you said, what he like the greatest thing he'd ever done.
Yeah.
So he went to the academy with me, and he was 45 years old going through the
Wow.
academy.
Wow.
And he was at that time, that was a cutoff limit. They
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't take anybody over 45. And man, he killed it. He was awesome.
Yeah.
Uh, he was a kind of a one of the in my academy class. One that kind of became the dad of the class. Everybody kind of looked up to him, and he had a great career. He actually got hit one night and got hit by a drunk driver and drugged for um, several blocks,
Mm-hmm.
and didn't know if he was going to make it, but he made it still around. But it was cool to hear his story of how he, that was his last chance to return to what he really wanted to do.
Right.
So,
No, it's
so
super. Like I said, right place, right time. Super fortunate, and didn't leave on bad terms. Still there. I was still. So I got on the SWAT team right after I'd hit my year. We have a part-time SWAT team.
mhm.
Dual duties, and in my reserve status, I was just remained attached to SWAT. So I went to SWAT training every month.
Oh, cool.
Um, we had a couple call outs. We're not a super, I mean, it's a smaller department,
Mm.
smaller town, and we're not a crazy active team by any means or anything like that. But I think I missed one call out while I was traveling for that job, but I was able to stay super connected and still all my certifications and stuff remained intact and
Yeah.
the retirement stuff. There's no gap in service, just in paid service versus reserve status.
Mhm.
So yeah, I just got the opportunity to come back and just happy to be here. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Well, going back, tell us a little about where you're from, kind of family, if you have any, siblings, and kind of what was there anything specific that kind of led you into law enforcement?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up. You've already heard from one of the guys I work with, but everybody says I grew up on a compound. It wasn't a compound. It was 40 acres in north of Van Buren, out in the woods, close to the national forest. But I have three brothers. I'm the second oldest. Three boys, and I was homeschooled all the way through. So that's probably where you get the cult. Compound vibes, but no weird, sacrifices or anything like that growing up. But yeah, normal childhood. My dad's a history professor. And, my mom was a teacher prior to having kids and stuff. So homeschooling. Some people are. It's kind of a hot topic. It's on a
Mhm.
trend right now that people are more apt to accept that as a normality, but definitely wasn't whenever
Mhm.
I was growing up. But um, kids have more opportunities now to play sports and stuff.
Mhm.
The in Arkansas, the Tim Tebow law is what they call it. It was signed the year I graduated high school, so I didn't get to play like public school sports. But now homeschoolers can participate in those sports, and
Mhm.
that's a good opportunity for them to get to do some of those things. But but yeah, no, it was awesome. I grew up in the woods. Three brothers, so we ran all through the countryside during the day, and had my first job when I was 16. Worked at a pizza place in Van Buren, slinging pizzas till I turned 18, and that was a good opportunity that I probably wouldn't have had if I had normal school hours,
Mhm.
and so that's cool. As far as my path to law enforcement, I've wanted to be a cop since I was 4 or 5 years old.
Really?
Like, and a lot of kids, I want to be a doctor, I want to be this, I want to be that, and they changed. Th- 4 or 5 years old, that's I want to be the police. Period. And I'd always been pursuing that, and um, I didn't have any law enforcement in my family. My
Mhm.
my grandpa was a with the Fort Smith Fire Department. He retired from there, and at the time he retired, he was fire marshal, so
Mm.
he was law enforcement
Mhm.
adjacent in that regard. But that was something I was more aware of as an older child because he retired in, I think 2000 or 2001,
Mhm.
and so it's not like that was a big pivotal thing in my life. But for whatever reason, I've wanted to be a cop since I can remember.
Yeah.
And got on that path. So um, went through high school. If you'd asked 17-year-old Justin what he was going to do when he graduated, I was going to go to college, get a degree, and then I was going to find a job as a cop where I got shot at least once a day. That was I was going to move big. I was looking at,
Yeah.
that's the path I was on, just wild and crazy, get as far away from, little small town Van Buren as I could.
Mhm.
And that was the plan until I met this gal named Megan,
Mm.
and fell in love with Megan, and we got married a year and a half after we started dating, or I guess a year after we started dating. We'd known each other before that, but anyway, so there I was married at. We were both 19 years old, both going to college. Had it all figured out. Married, student housing. Both going to school. Like I got it all figured out, man. And 5 months after I do, Megan's pregnant.
No. Wow.
And so that changed up my whole trajectory
Mhm.
because you couldn't have children in the married student housing. Well, I was working part time, going to school full time. Had a financial aid and stuff that was paying for the room and all this
Mhm.
stuff. So in that shuffling around, we had to get an apartment off campus. Well, I couldn't afford the apartment off campus without working full time, and I wasn't the best student by any means. I'm
Mhm.
not wouldn't say I'm a dumb guy, but I had to try hard
Yeah.
to do mediocre at the academic side of stuff. So getting to college, it was actually a breath of fresh air where I got to sit and listen to lectures
Mhm.
because I, in those later years of high school, it was a whole lot of me figuring it out and,
Mhm.
maybe using a computer program or whatever it was, but it wasn't a lot of live instruction.
Mhm.
And so when I got to college, I was, this is easy. Like this dude, it's going to explain everything to me. Like, what are you like? This is nothing. And so I attempted my financial aid only covered full-time student status. So I attempted a semester of full-time online and made it like 6 weeks in and went, nope, like
Yeah.
I'm so far behind, and just is what it
Mhm.
is. So um, ended up dropping out of college. I had completed 2.5 years and, or just, that would have been, I'd completed 2 years and went to work full time. I'd got a part time job at a bank in town, and went full time with them to support my new family and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And almost gave up on my law enforcement dream because in my head I had to have a degree. Um,
Mhm.
and a lot of big agencies at the time were requiring
Mhm.
degrees and stuff, but I hadn't done a ton of looking, near to home because I was planning to leave. Well, I was talking to a good family friend of ours, David Pass, and he works for the Van Buren Police Department. And he's like, weren't you gonna be a cop?" And I said, "Well, I was thinking about it, but I didn't finish my degree, and I'm not gonna be able to." And he's like, "Bro, like, be a regular officer. You don't have to have a degree. That's Fed stuff, or some big cities. Like,
Yeah.
that's." I was like, "You're kidding." He's like, "No." He said, "You need to come to a ride along with me." It's like, "I'd love that." And I love passing. He's an awesome dude. I'd go anywhere with him. He's the guy you want right beside you if you're in something rough. Um, but calling a spade and telling the truth, he'd been on patrol for a long time, so he was your more senior officer that wasn't going out and hustling, taking
Mhm.
bad guys to jail, doing that. He's taking his calls, handling stuff. So looking back now, it was a pretty boring ride along as
Mhm.
far as like we weren't doing stuff. It was mostly us driving around and him telling me stories about the different calls he'd been on. But I was hooked. Like
Mhm.
I was like, this is incredible. Like this is perfect. Also, growing up, I grew up 10 miles north of Van Buren, but that was home. My
Mhm.
grandparents lived there. So I spent my whole life in that area. And even up to and including going to the academy, even after doing that ride along and stuff, me and my wife actually attended Van Buren has a Citizens Police Academy, and so
Mhm.
we both attended that right before in the period of time right before and after I had turned 21. So I was taking a hard look at all the local agencies, trying to
Mhm.
decide where I wanted to apply at. I knew I didn't want to go to Fort Smith. They um, just had some more liberal kind of policies
Mhm.
going into effect, and so I was like, okay, cool. That's not really what I'm looking to do. So I ended up applying at Van Buren and Fayetteville PD,
Mm.
and through the Assistance Police Academy, it kind of cemented this is where I want to work,
Mhm.
right? And so I ended up formally withdrawing my application to Fayetteville and just going through with the testing process for Van Buren, was civil service department. So
Mhm.
had to take a written test and physical agility and all that. And then you're put on a list. And I was fortunate enough to, after the background checks and everything, I was number one on the list. And um, working at the bank at the time and all that stuff. And the way I got hired, last I had heard, they didn't have any openings. So
Mhm.
they do the list, and the list is good for a year, but they didn't have any openings at the time.
Mhm.
So I had just put in for a different position at the bank, and uh, my boss, I had worked for her previously. She had moved to a different branch. I was going to follow her, kind of do a similar position, but she had asked me, she said, "Hey, I know you're doing this law enforcement thing. Where you at in the hiring process?" I said, "Well, I actually have a review board tomorrow, but they told me they don't have any openings, so I don't know." But they said it could be months.
Mhm.
I don't really know. And she said, "Okay, cool." So they offered me that position. Cool. I accepted on a Thursday when my review board was on a Friday. So I get to PD. I do my review board. They tell me to go wait in the lobby. I was like, all right. So I'm waiting in the lobby. Chief comes out. He's like, "Hey, come back here." And so the way our civil service is set up is chief can pick out of the top three applicants, right? For if they have an open.
Mhm.
And so there's another interview you do with him, and he interviews the other applicants. Well, chief pulls me in his office. He goes, "All right, we had a guy quit this week. I'm hiring somebody today by noon. The academy starts in 2 weeks. So you're my first interview. I'm going to interview the next two guys after you, and you'll probably know something here in the next 45 minutes. I was like,
Wow.
cool. So I had to, talk to him, and the captain at the time. We've since had a rank restructure where they added a rank in, so it would have been our deputy chief,
Mhm.
basically the number two guy. But something he said that was funny. He's a real dry guy, super nice guy, Captain Common. And he goes, he just had a funny way he talked, but he goes, now, Mr. Wayne, being a cop, you don't make much money, and it's my understanding that you currently work at a bank. And I said, yes, sir. And he goes, well, if you don't mind my asking, how much money do you make right now working at that bank? Well, at the time, this bank I worked for, we were pretty low paid.
Yeah.
So getting hired at the police department was going to be a massive raise for me, plus benefits. So I tell him what I make at the bank, and he goes, oh, well, this will be a pretty good deal for you. Then on it. It's like, yes, sir. Yeah, family insurance sounds pretty cool. About a $12,000 a year raise, like that'd be pretty sick. And so I left there, drove to work because I was working at the bank later that day, and got a phone call about 30 minutes after I got to the bank, and they offered me a job.
Wow.
So
That's cool.
put in my 2 weeks notice that day. So that was a Friday. So I started at the PD 2 weeks from that day, and got sworn in. In my head, I'm thinking, I don't know, you go before a judge, like, I don't know what I was supposed to do. But I walked in the chief's office, and they said, hey, new guy's here, talk to you. And he goes, oh yeah. And he kind of ruffles through his desk, looking at the papers, and he goes, oh, here it is. And he goes, raise your right hand. And I was like, raise my right hand. And he swears me in and tosses me a badge. He goes, go see the lieutenant, get a gun, and do whatever they have for you the rest of the day. And so I did paperwork, new hire paperwork and stuff. Ended up riding with the officer for about 4 hours that afternoon, and then I started the academy on Monday.
Wow.
So I'm pretty fast track.
That is a
Just-
fast
just
track.
jumping right into it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was going to ask on when you were in homeschool back then, did they have like the co-op type deals that you to be a part of? So,
Yep.
is it
So we got to
help
be-
out a little bit?
Yeah, so we were part of a group, homeschool group. So, and then they had homeschool sports. So there was a basketball team that was pretty prevalent in our area. Their practices and stuff were pretty far away from where we lived at the time, so I didn't play for them. But I grew up playing tennis as a little kid, and that continued. And so I had a bunch of my friends from youth group at church, and then also through my tennis coach who coached tennis for the Van Buren high school team. I practiced with them a lot, and then played in like private tournaments and stuff. But I didn't get the chance to play on a team. But there was a lot of avenues then, and there's even more avenues now, for kids in those situations to have that interaction. And one of the big, I don't want to say ignorant, but less informed views of homeschooling is they worry about socialization, right? Well, the kid, they don't spend much time around kids their age, and that there's a degree of that's definitely something you want kids to have friends and be able to be kids. But in our case, me and my brother's case, a lot of our interactions were with adults, which I believe ultimately led to above average communication skills. Not, I wasn't around. Didn't spend the majority of my time around my peers. It was, adults. And so I think that ended up benefiting me more than it did inhibit me later. So
I think homeschool since COVID has just gone crazy, and I my girls have gone since first grade to private Christian school, but if I looked at possibly doing homeschool around that time, because even a lot of the schools were going virtual, at that time. And, I always kind of thought, okay, if this thing goes longer, or, if they try it again, then I would definitely look at homeschooling, because there's so many resources out there for everybody now. I know a lot of people who their kids do it, and they play football and wrestle and do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, no, it's definitely grown, and there's for sure a right way and a wrong way to do it. And there's some people that are, well, we're homeschooling and it's a cop out and the kids aren't actually getting an education. There's definitely that for sure wasn't the case for me growing up, and that's not the case with, I would say, the majority. It's well-intentioned people trying to do what they think is best for their kids, man. And I'm not, I was homeschooled. My wife is currently homeschooling my children, and that's awesome. And it's 100% what I believe is best for for me and my family, you
Mhm.
know, but that's not the same across the board, you know.
Right.
I
Right.
wouldn't seek to say anybody's wrong for doing whatever they believe is best for their family in
Mhm.
that regard. So
Ride-alongs tend to get a lot of people hired.
yeah, I'm telling you, I'm telling you.
And I would tell anybody listening, like if you're not in law enforcement, even if you don't want to be in law enforcement, but to really get an understanding of what they do and what the things that are going on in your city, go for a ride along.
Yep,
Call the police department, see if you can go for a ride along.
yep.
And don't be surprised if you leave saying, "Man, that's awesome."
Yeah, that's a cool
Like,
job.
I can't believe they get paid for that.
Yeah.
So your brothers, did they have any interest in law enforcement?
No, not at all.
No.
So it's funny. So you know, my dad's a professor, academic, you know, kind of a nerdy fella, super nice guy. I love him, but we you know, I got some things from my dad, but I didn't get the academic side. And but my big brother, he's a teacher in Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Teaches at a private Christian school. He's got a master's degree and all that kind of stuff. Also a nerd. And then I have one little brother who's a plumber and one who's an electrician,
Oh, nice.
and I think he works for a roofing company now.
Mhm.
And then I'm the second oldest who dropped out of college and became a cop. So, um, you know, it's we all have our strengths.
Oh, yeah.
I say don't call me for skilled labor. I'm good at unskilled labor. Like I can pick stuff up. I can hold a flashlight with the best of them. But if you need skilled labor, call one of my other brothers. Like that's not what you want from me for. So
Yeah, if I had boys, I think right now I would be pushing them uh, either uh, electrical or,
yeah, any of the trades
I
right
mean, the
now is
trades are,
yeah.
yeah, they're killing it.
Yeah.
And it looks like what, the news lately is that there's looking for so many jobs in that
Yeah.
shipbuilders and,
Yep. It's an
um,
awesome way to make a living, and
mhm.
it's hard work, you know, for sure.
Yeah.
But you know, me and my brother spent a lot of time working with my grandfather on our property, and that was, you know, homeschool. We had a pretty flexible schedule, so mom never passed the chance to send us to be free slave labor
Oh,
for
yeah.
one of the family members.
Yeah.
At the time, that's what it felt like, was we were free slave labor. But I learned to lay flooring. You know, I learned to
Mhm.
work hard, cut hay, build fence. You know, split firewood, all of that. You know, just work.
Mhm.
And so me and my brothers grew up working, so that was it served me well as an
Yeah.
adult for sure.
So I'm assuming you probably went through a state academy or you had like a state run
Yes, sir. So in
academy.
Arkansas, there's Camden,
Mhm.
which if you think about the map of Arkansas, where the armpit would be, and the worst portion of the state, that's where Camden is, and so that's where the class run, you know, state academy is.
Mhm.
And so if you send guys to that, at the time I went through, it was a 12 to 13 week academy. I think now it's 16. It might even be 17 weeks.
Mhm.
They've added a bunch since when I went through. But so we can send, depending upon scheduling and hire dates, we can send guys there, and that's where you go stay in a barracks. It's it's a little bit more paramilitary type academy, but
Mhm.
by no means an extremely difficult academy.
Mhm.
And Arkansas State Police, you know, whenever they hire troopers, they have a reputation. That's a
Mhm.
tough school, man. You know,
Mhm.
that's something different. The In Camden, they do it kind of similar, but it's not the beat downs. It's not, you know, all the stuff that some academies have.
Mhm.
I was fortunate enough. Fort Smith PD put on a certified academy,
Oh, yeah.
and or a, you know, state sanctioned academy. And I was fortunate enough that when I got hired, that was the one that was starting. So the whole time I went to the academy, I lived on the Sebastian County side, so in Barling, which is really close to Fort Smith. So I lived 2 miles from the training center.
Oh,
So I just went back and forth. Got to go home every night. Yeah, it wasn't a bad experience at all.
yeah.
12, I think it was 13 weeks altogether, and wasn't a bad experience at all. Definitely wasn't. I mean, we had PT and stuff, but it wasn't, you know, they
Mhm.
weren't just smoking you and, you
Yeah.
know, mistreating you by any means. Stuff had changed, and the academics weren't, you know, crazy difficult. And the other thing too is I was interested in all of it. So, I
Mhm.
mean, there was a couple of weeks that were more boring than others, you know,
Mhm.
but overall this is what I've wanted my whole life. So I was
Yeah.
very dialed in and paying attention because I was interested in it. You know, it was cool. So,
Oh, yeah.
great academy experience, you know, learned a lot. Um, Definitely. I don't know if any academy ever prepares you for the road by any
Mhm.
means, but I definitely got a overall view, good basis for Arkansas law, good basis for use of force. That's where I figured out I needed to learn how to shoot. It was
Mhm.
in the academy, and it wasn't the week long range week. That was mostly your stake wall stuff,
Mhm.
basic fundamentals of shooting a pistol, which I grew up, with my brothers and my dad hunting, shooting guns.
Mhm.
I was on a trap shooting team from junior high until I graduated high school. So I was real familiar with guns, and hadn't spent a ton of time with pistols, but
Mhm.
I was competent. The day at the academy that completely opened my eyes to, oh shit, I need to like focus on this. This is a big deal. Was they call it their tactical shooting day,
Mhm.
and it wasn't super intense, but it had a lot of moving and shooting. It had a lot of high heart rate stuff where they get you jacked up, and then you'd had to go shoot a simple course of fire,
Mhm.
and that's where I was like, oh man, I suck at this. Like,
Mhm.
I need to work
Makes a
on this.
big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And the walking into a career that I'd wanted since I was little, um, I attempted as best I could to, I guess, to learn every lesson I possibly could to do it the best I could.
Mhm.
So walking into it knowing law enforcement's divorce rate, I was just
Mhm.
trying to focus on what what made that such a prevalent deal and not do it that way.
Mhm.
With my relationship with my wife. Um, I stepped in 2016, so it was before the George Floyd stuff, but
Mhm.
it was after Ferguson, and so kind of in that in between time. And the trend nationwide was cops are getting into more and more shootings,
Mhm.
and so I, from the very beginning, approached potentially having to use deadly force of in the preparation that I did was it wasn't if, it was when.
Mhm.
And I need to be working on this as
Mhm.
much as I can. And so that tactical shooting day at the academy really opened my eyes, and I was like, man, I need to work on this. And so
Mhm.
I'll forever be grateful for that. Um, it was super eye opening. So, but yeah.
Did you seek training? Did you have you since then? Does your department pretty good about sending you training? Do you have to seek your own training?
The department, so I would say yes and no.
Mhm.
I came out of the academy and started looking at everything I could possibly look at. I was on YouTube. Um, uh, I remember watching. I'd watch every single body cam I could find. I was watching shooting instructionals, and I would go to the range with my own ammo. We
Mhm.
have a range for the PD that guys have unlimited access to. They can go if you're a range instructor, you have a key. If you're not a range instructor, you can go check out a key and go use it anytime. Quickly after I got hired, I ended up moving into Van Buren, so I lived 5 minutes from our range. So I'd run out there and shoot. I didn't have a ton of money for ammo. When I got hired, we were carrying Glock 22s, so
Mhm.
40 cal. So the the poorest and brokest I've ever been in my whole life. I could afford 50 rounds of ammo every 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and so that's what I did. I'd buy a box of ammo and go shoot.
Mhm.
And I remember finding one instructor on YouTube, and he was like, "This is the way to shoot a pistol." And I'm like, "Cool." So I started working on that. Well, then a couple weeks later, and I'm looking at somebody else, and
Yeah.
he's like, "No, that way is stupid. This is the way." And I was like, "Man, he makes a lot of sense. Okay, scrap that. Like I scrap everything I was doing before and work on this." And um, just grinding in that regard. Um, but and everything good that's ever happened to me or any ability that I have right now is because something was freely given to me.
Mhm.
Um, I am only the whatever degree of police officer I am, and whatever degree of shooter I am, whatever degree of martial artist or
Mhm.
combatives type guy, fitness, everything I have and know was somebody pouring into me, and
Mhm.
that's paying homage to those guys, and getting an opportunity like this, sit down. That's I can't say enough of the people that have poured into me, and so one of those guys, um, out of respect for him and his situation, he's going to be Rusty for this interview. But Rusty, I met him. I there was a gun shop in Fort Smith that was on my way home from when I worked at the bank. And I've always loved guns, but I thought I was a gun nerd until I came into this room and I was like, man, I don't know what any of this stuff is. This is cool. But um, I met him from us being in the gun shop at the same time. He didn't work there. He was just
Mhm.
another customer there. And ended up, kind of building a little bit of a rapport with him. Well, right after I got out of the academy at Van Buren, we worked a Panama shift. So it's like you work with 12-hour shifts. You work Monday, Tuesday, off Wednesday, Thursday, and then you work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then the following week, you would mirror that off Monday,
Mm,
Tuesday, work Wednesday, Thursday. So you only work 7 out of 14 days,
mm,
rotating nights and days every 8 weeks. And so I had a lot of days off. Well, I went into that gun store right after, it was around the time I'd finished, my FTO period, and they had a help wanted sign. Well, I've been a customer in there for years, knew the owner, knew everything. So I hollered at the owner. I was like, "Hey, you want to hire me to work part time?" He's like, "Yeah, absolutely. When can you start?" I was like, "My day off next week is this day." He's like, "Come on." And so I started working there part time on my days off from the PD, and so continued that relationship with Rusty. Well, all I knew was he was a dude that worked for a pretty large company, and he liked guns. That's all I knew
mhm,
about him. Well, through another guy at the gun store, he ended up telling me that he had a background with a portion of our special forces military previously to his job,
mhm,
and he didn't fit the picture of what I had in my head for
mhm,
that. But I was like, no, no, he didn't. He's like, no, I'm telling you, he was. He used to be that. And I was like, no way. And so me being the absolutely dumb, arrogant 20-something-year-old dude that I was at the time, next time Rusty comes in, I'm like, "Hey, were you enlisted the service?" And he's like, "Yeah, I was." And I said, "No, you weren't. Like, stop, bro. Like, I don't believe you." He's like, "No, like I was." And so we started talking about it, and he was like, "Yeah, I was." Well, that led into I was asking him, questions about training and stuff like that. And so I mentioned to him, I said, "Man, I'm really trying to work on my pistol shooting and
mhm,
trying to get good at this." He knew I'd, got into law enforcement and was working there part-time and stuff. And so he said, "Man, you need to come to the range with me sometime." And I said, "Bro, I'd love that. I would absolutely love that. Say when." He said, "Well, actually, it was, I don't, the time frame, it was the first time I went to the range with him was around April of 2017. So just before I'd hit my first
mhm,
year at the police department." And, I was like, Absolutely." So we went. There's a gun club in Fort Smith that also had a satellite range
mhm,
at another town that was a little bit smaller, not as many people used, but it had almost 360 degrees of berms. And you had the ability to kind of set up a course of fire,
mhm,
and have a little bit more freedom than just standing poking holes in paper, from a firing line,
mhm,
which was all I was doing up to that point. I mean, I was probably working some bill drills. I didn't know what a bill drill was at the
mhm,
time, but I was like, well, it makes sense that I need to be able to shoot fast and accurate out of a holster. So let's work on that for a while.
mhm,
And I used to buy paper plates because they were cheap and you could get a whole stack of them and I could just staple it to a piece of cardboard. It's like, well, if I can keep them all inside of that, I'm doing
mhm,
okay, for realistic, at the time what I believed was good, especially with the recoil of a Glock 22, trying to control that. And so anyway, I went to the range with him for the first time, and I'll never forget it, man. I come walking up and he's like, "All right, like we're gonna be running a set of several courses of fire." He said, "Do you have electronic hearing protection?" And I was like, "What's that?" He's like, "Cool. Here." Hands me a set of Peltors, and he goes, "Do you have AR-15 mag pouches for your belt?" Nope. He goes, "Here." And I had an AR that I'd purchased, but I didn't even have a red dot on it yet. Didn't
mhm.
have a sling or anything. He goes, "You got a sling for that rifle?" And I said, "Nope." He goes, Here's a 2-point sling, probably blue
Wow.
force gear, basic, 2-point
Mhm,
quick adjust sling." And he said, "Surely you have mag pouches for your pistol." I said, "I do have that. I got a pistol, holster, and 2 mag pouch. I'm good to go." And he said, "Cool." And then he proceeded to run me through just a set of like a course of fire where there was targets at varying distances from 25 yards all the way out to 75 yards at different directions to where you're having to engage here, engage here. The targets had different color T-shirts spray painted on them.
mhm,
Some of them a lot of them were steel targets. They even had faces stenciled on them, so it wasn't just you shooting
mhm,
a silhouette. There was cognitive processing where he'd have the alphabet with different colors,
mhm,
on there, and so the first portion he'd hold up a card and it had a sequence of colors and letters, and you had to shoot those probably 2-inch letters on this deal.
mhm,
Um, had a hostage target that you had to engage at different points, but it was all moving, shooting, reloading. We loaded each other's mags with a set number of rounds, but you never knew when your reloads were coming because
Mhm.
your buddy had loaded your mags. That day changed. It changed the trajectory of my career and my approach to training. I was like, this is it, man. Like, this is what I need. And I even I brought what ammo I had, but he told me, he said, this is probably how much ammo you need. And I was like, cool, I have almost that. He said, don't worry, I'll have extra ammo. And so I shot all my ammo and ended up shooting some of his. And, and I owe every aspect of the shooter I am today to Rusty, man. Like, that dude, the skills and the information that I got from him, which he freely gave to me as a young cop.
Mhm.
And we weren't now, fast forward to now, my kids call him Uncle Rusty.
Oh, yeah.
He's one of my best friends, closest friends in the world. I trust him with every aspect of my life. But we weren't that in 2017.
Mhm.
I was just a dude who was trying to get good at a skill set that he had,
Mhm.
and he freely gave me all that information above and beyond what anybody should have, you know. And I'll forever be grateful for that day and then the many range days we've had since then. So
That's
what
awesome.
started then is I started, instead of shooting those 50 rounds I was buying every 2 weeks, I'd stockpile them till I had 400 or 500 rounds. And I tell
Mhm.
him like, hey man, ready to roll. He's like, cool. And we go to the range and just continue building on that. And so valuable. And I'll again just so grateful to
Oh,
him
yeah.
and his contribution to I owe him. I owe him a lot. And it's that training and that preparedness, you know, has led me in multiple occasions to be successful
Mhm.
in use of force incidents. It's led to a few Top Gun trophies at the PD. You know,
Right.
but I owe that to that dude, man. So,
And you mentioned too, you also do martial arts,
mhm.
jiu-jitsu, I assume?
Yep, yep,
So
jitsu. So, um, I the full week of combatives at the academy. So I grew up three brothers wrestling, you know,
Mhm.
fighting. I took a youth self defense class when I was like 13, and walked away from that. I'm basically a UFC fighter. I took this class, you know. But it was actually taught by, at the time, he was a detective for our department. He, whenever I got hired, was a sergeant, Randy Allen. Randy's one of the greatest men I've ever had the opportunity to know. He was my direct supervisor for the majority of my career.
Mhm.
For the first year and a half ish of me being on patrol and released on my own, he was my supervisor. And then whenever I got moved to detectives, he was the sergeant over CID, and then was the lieutenant over CID. So he was my direct boss for the majority of my career, up to the point that he retired last year. But he was also the SWAT team leader whenever I got hired at the PD. But and he taught that use of force, or that not use of force class, that like youth self
Yeah.
defense course when I was 13. But I got out of the combatives week at the academy and went, "Oosh, I don't know how to fight.
Yeah.
You know, I need to work on this. This is important." Um, and Randy had a dojo that he co-ran with a couple other guys, but they had a free to law enforcement class on Tuesdays. And as soon as I got out of the academy and got out of FTO and kind of got my feet under me, I started going to that, and I've been going there ever since. So
That's awesome.
that has grown. So his background is Goju karate.
Mhm.
I would be misquoting to say what degree of black belt he is, but it's up there.
Mhm.
And then he's, throughout his time as an adult traveling throughout the United States, he's dabbled in jiu-jitsu, he's dabbled in judo, got the opportunity to train at a whole bunch of different, you know, really high-end gyms. And so he's a Gracie Combatives instructor. And so that law enforcement class that's free. Any police officer in our area
Mhm.
can come. We've got deputies that come, guys from other agencies, different. We got some firemen that come.
Mhm.
It's a great environment for guys to come, and again that financial burden isn't there because
Mhm.
it's free, man. It's we were freely given. We will also freely give,
Mhm.
you know. And so the bulk of that is working your basic Gracie combatives, your basic jiu-jitsu stuff,
Mhm.
your control and capture stuff, hand extractions, you know, all of that. But I started that right after, it's probably almost close to my year at the PD. And so I've been consistently training there for 8 years now.
Oh, wow.
So,
That's awesome. 8 years. That's
yep,
good.
yep.
We do a free class on Tuesdays and Thursdays
Awesome.
for all law enforcement. And it's great. We get a lot of people in there
Yep.
that probably otherwise wouldn't
Yeah.
train. And, that's the biggest thing I've seen throughout my career is training gives you so many more options.
Yep.
And, you see it on all levels, but those who are more trained end up generally, usually, probably getting in less stuff because they have more options, more ways of doing things. So,
Yeah. I would say their overall stress is lower too, stepping into
hmm
those chaotic situations.
hmm
Um, when when you're not thinking, "Can I take this guy?" and you're not thinking, "Do I need more help here?" You're actually able to process what's in front of you easier
hmm
and find other solutions. Like it's not just about can you get this subject under control if he gets combative,
hmm
but the less you're having to actively think about, the more you can absolutely focus on what's in front of you and make good decisions.
hmm
And so that has paid dividends throughout
hmm
my career on many occasions. Jiu-jitsu and understanding combatives has saved my life, and in some cases saved suspects' lives that I was dealing
hmm
with, where I
hmm
didn't have to resort to something just
hmm
because of I knew how to. I was never in over my head,
hmm
um, and I'm grateful for that,
hmm
and that's I owe that to Randy. I don't. I wasn't born, a genetic superstar. I wasn't. I don't. I didn't bring anything to the table. Everything that I have, I was freely given, and
That's awesome.
I owe that to him.
Yeah, things can quickly escalate when you don't
Yep.
have those options.
Yep. Yep.
um, so, do you have a couple stories like those first years on the street, whether
Yeah.
they're funny or scary or
Yeah.
whatever?
Yeah. Absolutely. So, you mentioned that, and so I was thinking, and so growing up in Van Buren, yes, I chose the department. I did the Citizens Police Academy. I did the ride along, and so I knew it was going to be fun. But even going to the academy and getting hired at the police department, I still had no idea what actually happened in the city of Van Buren. By
Mm,
my perspective as a kid growing up there, and even looking at the news, we didn't have a super high crime rate based on what was on the news. We didn't have. It was a quiet town, small town, and there was a degree that even in my heart, I believed I was settling. Well, at least I get to be a cop. I'm not going to have any fun, or you get to do
mhm,
anything cool, but at least I'll get to be a cop. And when I got out of the academy and hit the streets, I was very pleasantly surprised with the underside of all of society. Right,
mhm,
Van Buren's not a crime-ridden. We average if you measure off of 10-year blocks, maybe
mhm,
one homicide a year.
mhm,
We've had years where we've had three or four,
mhm,
and years where we've had zero since I've been there. But not a super high homicide rate. We don't have a ton of shootings. Um, we don't have gangs to speak of as far as organized gang wars that you hear about in other jurisdictions. We do have a pretty significant Aryan Brotherhood population,
mhm,
but that's mostly the result of the gangs that happen in prison, and then
mhm,
that spills out into the streets. It's less about being organized on the streets and then
mhm,
going into prison. So we have a degree of that, but just the basic part of humanity that's anywhere there's humans.
mhm,
So I was shocked by how many hundreds and even thousands of people walk the streets every day with warrants for their arrest.
mhm.
That all you have to do is find them. And if you find them, ID that guy, you get to put handcuffs on him and take him to jail for that warrant. I was like, this is like hide and seek, for adults. This is incredible. Um, Drugs. When I was in the academy, uh, we had a portion about, search and seizure for
Mhm.
vehicles and getting consent and all that. And as a 21-year-old kid, I was in the academy going, man, that seems kind of like a live chess game. Like that's kind of cool. That sounded like it would be fun. And even then in the academy, I was like, we probably don't have that many drugs in Van Buren, but
Mhm.
maybe I'll run across or whatever. Yeah, there's drugs everywhere. There's drugs all over the United
Oh, yeah.
States. Not to the degree there are in some cities, but like there was plenty of crime.
Mhm.
If you wanted to go out and hustle and be proactive, there was never a time when I was on patrol that I felt like Van Buren was small. I had
Mhm.
plenty of room to play, and plenty of places that if you go and you're a proactive officer, man, you can put bad guys in jail. And uh, some of that was real bad guys, like drug dealers, cool.
Mhm.
Some of it's, drug users. Some of it's just people with basic warrants. And then there's all people with felony warrants walking
Mhm.
around all the time, suspects from Fort Smith, whatever. And so I was, again, pleasantly surprised by how much fun there was to be had for a guy who wanted to go out and be proactive and go get after it. And I was hungry, man. Like that's all I wanted. Um, to a fault, really.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier that I was aware of the divorce rate in law enforcement. I had some conversations about that, and so there was a degree of me that was kind of keeping my eye on that as far as like my relationship with my wife. But um, whenever I hit the street and got out there, my personal life got away from me pretty significantly, and I put my job over everything because I loved it.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
I loved it. I lived and breathed being a cop, and um, we'll get to it probably a little later on. But that almost cost me everything. That almost cost me my family, and I deeply regret how I conducted myself
Mhm.
in my personal life, in my relationship with my wife, and even as a father to my young kids at the time. Um, and I was completely blind to it, but it was from the love of the job.
Mhm.
And so I had a turning point later on, and we'll, we can talk about that. But I don't want to, in telling these stories, and man, I had so much fun and just,
Mhm.
just incredible experiences. But some of that's overshadowed with I cared so much,
Mhm.
about the job and put it over everything in my life. But anyway, so one of those stories, like I remember I was working on Randy Allen's troop. It was a Sunday afternoon and day shift, so our 12-hour shifts were 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and the 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So it's day shift on a Sunday. So you're coming into that's your fifth day working that week. So that's your like long weekend of working. So that's
Mhm.
kind of like your Friday. Um, and you've been taking reports as day shifts. So just like anywhere else, you got a lot of reports, a lot of wrecks, of all the things I did on patrol. I hated working wrecks,
Mhm.
and it's dumb because they like the way our computer system is. It takes 5 minutes to do a accident report, and handling the scene that get people help that need help, get the vehicles out of the roadway, have people fill out statements, do the report. Like it's not a big deal. It's not a hard, difficult task. I just loathed
Yeah.
wrecks. I just hated them. And so I was set up. We only had, I think there was 4 or 5 of us working at the time. Our minimum staffing for a shift was 4. You had to have at least 4 dudes working. A fully staffed troop at the time either had 6 or 7, and now we're typically a fully staffed troop is 8, I believe.
Mhm.
Could still be 7, but uh, so Sunday day shift. It's kind of rainy, and but it was warm out, so I do cold and I'll do wet. I don't do cold and wet. But I was set up on a apartment that I knew had somebody slinging drugs, so I'm basically just waiting on that give me traffic stop where the car pulls in, is there 5 minutes and leaves, and a car had just pulled in, and so I'm watching them, kind of hidden as much as you can be in a black and white,
Mhm.
vehicle, and I got dispatched to a single vehicle accident. Right at is at one of our main intersections on one of our kind of main roads through town, and I'm like 10-4, I was in my beat. I gotta go handle it, and I'm irritated because I'm trying to do some
Mhm.
proactive stuff, and the guys I'm working with, besides the sarge, they weren't proactive guys, so
Mhm.
I'm like, some this is stupid. I'm getting caught. I'm cussing, driving my happy rear end to the accident, and I get there, and sure enough, car had driven off the road. That's the other thing I was mad about. I'm like, really? You can't even like. It's one thing to hit another car, but you can't even drive. Like, what are we doing here? Just mad and irritated. So anyway, I pull up in this car. There's a curb, and then there's like an embankment that goes up to like a retirement home kind of rehab facility. So while on this embankment, this car has driven off the road instead of making that curb and hit a street sign and is kind of parked on the embankment. So oh, that's kind of weird. Just regular little 4-door SUV, probably like Toyota Corolla or something. And so I get there, and as I'm walking up, I see Sarge Randy Allen. He comes pulling up behind my unit. And so I'm walking up to the vehicle, and there's some other people that have stopped at that point. So I got some civilians kind of walking up towards the car. Well, I get up to the passenger window, or the driver window, I'm sorry. And there's a lady in her 60s, probably kind of an elderly type lady. And she's just sitting in the car, hands in her lap, and she's just staring straight ahead at the steering wheel, like not looking out. She's just
Mhm.
sitting there, staring straight ahead, not blinking. That's kind of weird. So I knock on the door. Excuse me, ma'am. Are you okay? Nothing. Doesn't blink. Nothing. Just staring straight ahead. Like, okay, that's a little weird. So I'm knocking a little harder. And I'm kind of looking around, just trying to see what I'm working with. I got people walking up. Well, then I walk around, I check the driver door and it's locked. So I walk around to the passenger side and check that door, and all the doors are locked in the vehicle. And so I'm knocking on the window. Well, at this point, some civilians are kind of walking up towards the front of the car,
Mhm.
and I'm knocking and yelling loud, and she's not responding at all. But it's not she's slumped over again. She's staring straight ahead, so she's conscious. So this is weird. Kind of get a funny feeling,
Mhm.
hair on the back of my neck. So I told I was like, hey guys, go ahead and get out of the front of the car, like just scoot over here. So they move over. And so I'm thinking, man, do I need to bust a window? Like, what, like, surely she can hear me. Maybe she's deaf or something. So anyway, I end up smacking this window hard, like as hard as I can, just palm slap loud. And I'm like, hey. And she sits up. She looks at me like dead in my face and then looks back straight ahead, grabs the steering wheel, throws that dude in drive and takes off. And I was like, what? Like, I've got Granny in the car, and she's was just sitting there not responding. Now she's taking off. So I take off running to my unit. Well, Sarge was walking up, and then he runs back to his. So I put out on the radio that I had arrived on scene. And then my next traffic after that is I'm in pursuit of vehicle. And so dispatch comes over and they're like, copy, you're in foot pursuit. And no, I'm in pursuit of this vehicle. We're eastbound on Alma Highway. And she pulled out back onto the road, and there was a stoplight right there. Well, she comes up to the line. Well, the light was red, so she stops. So I made it back to my car. I throw it in drive. I go, lights and sirens, and then get behind her, and then we're stopped at this red light. And I was like, so I'm wait. She's clear. She can drive. There's nothing in front of her,
Mhm.
and so I throw it in park, go running out, and I just make it up to the car, and I was pulling out my baton to bust a window. Well, dang it, the light turns green. And then she doesn't just drive, she punches it, takes off. So I run back to my car, throw my baton in the passenger seat, take off driving after her. So we round that corner, go by a gas station. She hits probably 90 miles an hour coming around this curb. It's a portion of the road it's 5 lanes. So you got a middle turn lane and then 2 lanes going each direction. So I'm calling out the pursuit, trying to catch up to her in my Ford Exploder. We had just got the Explorers the year prior, I think, and they were not. No matter what Ford says, they weren't fast. And so I was giving her all she's got, trying to catch up to that car, and she ended up running a red light right before she got to the interstate, and a car came and clipped her and sent her into a spin. So she spins off the road, and there's a McDonald's down here, and there's a like a brick wall section that has a dumpster, and her car bang hits that. So I call out the wreck. I'm like, hey, I've got a multiple vehicle accident. I need EMS, first responders. I need other units for traffic. And my suspect vehicle has slid off the road. So I park my unit and I go running down there to her. And I look in the windows, and so I tossed my baton. So I pulled my flashlight, hoping I could bust the window with my flashlight, which was just a Streamlight Stinger. I mean, it
Mhm.
wasn't like a mag light or anything crazy. But anyway, I had it in my hand, and she's trying to get the car back in drive, like trying to spin tires, trying to get going again. But she's down this kind of embankment, against this wall. And so before I go to hit the window, I check it, and it's unlocked. So I drop my flashlight and just dive into the passenger side of this car. Well, I go reaching for the keys, and she starts pushing on me to try to get me away from the keys, right? So then I'm like, I'm fighting grandma in the front seat of this car. So and I'm thinking, so she's not a bad guy based on what I can tell. And so I'm kind of thinking medical episode, right?
Mhm.
So I just pin her against the headrest, and I'm able to get the keys, and I just reach out and throw them out of the car. So, okay, she cannot drive anywhere.
Mhm.
Now we can assess this. And she's clearly now coherent and conscious. So we can start figuring out what the heck's going on with Granny. And by that time, firemen are getting there, EMS gets there. Well, the keys are removed. She's now just sitting in her driver's seat, and she will not respond to us. We're trying to talk to her, and she's just kind of sitting there rocking, like not saying anything. And so again, I'm thinking in my head, not a bad guy. Like, it's obviously if you got, I don't know, but there'd be other situations where, cool, you're not cooperating, you just fled from the police, pull them out, cuff them, stuff them, take them to jail, right? But we're trying to figure out what's going on because it's just super weird. So Sarge is standing there. I'm kind of standing there, kind of at a loss. She won't respond to us. We're trying to just talk. Hey, let's just get into the ambulance. Let's just go to the ambulance, go to the hospital,
Mhm.
get you checked out. Maybe she'll start talking to them. Had the firemen come try to talk. Everybody loves firemen. So had the firemen trying to talk to her and everything, but she's not responding. Well, then I hear a ringtone in the cab of the vehicle. And I thought, man, somebody's calling her. They're going to know who she is and like what her deal is if she has a history of medical stuff. So she's kind of just sitting there rocking. Well, she kind of snaps out of it and reaches for her phone. And when she gets it to here, I'm standing at the driver door. I just snatch the phone out of her hand and go to answer it. Granny didn't like that. And so she comes out of the car and says, give me my phone, and starts chasing me. Well, again, trying really hard not to curb stomp grandma who's possibly having a medical episode. I didn't know what I just took off running. So I'm on the phone and I'm like, hey, this is Officer Wing with the Van Buren Police Department, running from this chick. And she's just chasing me in circles in this parking lot. So all the firemen standing there watching, Sarge standing there watching. And I'm like, hey, who are you calling right now? And the lady's like, what? Like on the other end, I said, I'm an officer with the Van Buren Police Department. Who are you calling? Whose phone is this? And so she tells me the lady's name. And I said, does she have a medical history? She's kind of acting weird as I'm running from this lady in the parking lot. And she goes, yes, she has a history of seizures. She won't know where she's at. Like it's a deal. And I said, okay, cool. Well, in the midst of that, I'm just running from her, trying to stay away from her. You know, she's probably not going to hurt me, but like, again, trying not to beat up the lady having a medical episode. And I hear while I'm running, my sergeant yell, he goes, Wing, run into the ambulance. And so I was like, hey, that's a good idea. So I run and climb into the back of the ambulance, and I still have the phone. Well, she's kind of slower moving, you know, and she's climbing up into the ambulance, and I'm kind of dangling the phone in front of her. And she gets up in there, and then I dive out the side door, and boom, we shut the doors and have her sealed in the ambulance. And so what they were able to determine was exactly that. She had a seizure, and didn't, by her recollection, she didn't remember any of the pursuit.
Wow.
Didn't remember much of our interaction there at the kind of woke up in the hospital, if you will. And so obviously there's property damage. We had to do the accident for all that, but like we finished, like that's one of those days. I'm 22 at that point. You know, you get home from work and I was like, how's work? And I'm like, you're not gonna believe what happened. Like it's crazy. You know, this is something out of a movie. Like it was nuts. And little old Van Buren, like it was just one of those. You never know. There is no such thing as a routine call for sure. But then you have those outliers that it wasn't just not a routine call, man. Like I'll remember that for the rest of my life.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was crazy. And Sarge yelling, "Run into the ambulance!" You know, it was cool. But yeah, that was a good one. There was a period of time. So we had Arkansas has a state funded grant that pays for overtime for traffic enforcement. So they'll do it for speed enforcement, DWI task force stuff on weekends. And so it was an opportunity for patrol guys to come in on their days off and make some, overtime, extra money or whatever. So there was a period of time I was right at as a 2-year officer, where every single time I came into work that, and typically you don't take calls or anything. You're just handling traffic. Now something crazy kicks off. Obviously you're a cop. You can do cop stuff, but you're just doing your traffic, whatever the seatbelt, whatever it is, you're kind of just doing that enforcement. It's not tickets mandated or anything like that. It's just, you're just stopping cars and doing that type of enforcement. So, well, there was a period of time where every single time I come into work that something bad happened. Like I either got into a foot chase or we had a guy one time I was working it, and a dude he had just got sentenced to prison, and they didn't have him in belly change or something at the courthouse. So he ended up running off into the woods, and we chased that dude. Couple of pretty crazy fights that had occurred. And so I'm right at towards the end of that period. It's the middle of summertime. And so I come walking in on a Sunday afternoon to work like 4 hours of step that afternoon. And one of my buddies who we had previously been on a troop together, he got hired 3 months after I did because we had another guy leave. And so we spent our first year on patrol together as rookies on this troop. And we were running and gunning and chasing bad guys and figuring out how to be cops and all the stuff. And I come walking into the troop room to grab like keys to a unit and stuff. And he goes, bro, he's like, what are you doing? Why are you here? And I said, man, I'm here to work some step. And he goes, no. He's like, Wing, bro, listen, I'm behind on paperwork. Like he's sitting at the desk. He's like, I'm trying to get like, stop. Like, let's not. I said, bro, promise you. 4 hours of step, make my traffic stops. I'm going home. I'm not chasing any bad guys. I'm not looking for dope. I'm not doing any of that. I'm just going to do this. And he goes, no, I'm going to stay right here and I'm going to get caught up because you're going to get us into some bullshit. And I was like, bro, promise you, we're good. So I leave. I get like 3.5 hours into my 4-hour block. I'm kind of blinders on, like don't care about, what I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Try to have an easy 4 hours to go home. Well, it just so happens it was the night prior, or maybe it was the night before that. We had a dude who was well known at the police department, criminal, and none of us he was always running, always fighting, low level drug dealer, thief, just that guy, man. Nobody at the PD likes this dude. Real smart. He'd talk so much shit to you when you're arresting. Nobody likes this guy. Well, an officer on night shift had stopped a vehicle that he had been driving in this one certain part of town, and he had jumped out of the driver's seat and fled and got away. The officer technically did the right thing, stayed with the car, right? But he had got away, and that bothered me. Like, I was like, no, screw this guy. Like, he should have gone to jail that night. So anyway, I happened to be in that part of town, looking for, I don't remember if I was working seatbelt or speed or what I was doing, but anyway, I'm driving and I see that vehicle that we've all seen, that just, the lights, doves fly out the background. This is a felony arrest right here. And the two guys they're deer in the headlights, see my cop car. We meet on the road. The driver turned his head and scratches, hiding his face. And I'm like, I pass him. I'm like, don't do it. Don't, no, I can't help it. So, I'll flip around on the road, get behind them. They had a brake light out or I had probable cause immediately after getting behind them. So I light them up and pull over. And so I'm putting it out on the radio. They come to a complete stop. And as I'm putting it out on the radio, driver door opens, dude bails, takes off running. And same build, same cut, looked just like this guy. To the point that when I put it out on the radio, I said, yeah, PD, I got one running. And then I jump out to take off after him. And I put on the radio his direction of travel, where he's running, describing the part of town, the street, and all that. But then I said, I think it's this dude, and identified him. Well, so again, I'd taken it personally that he had beat us 2 nights prior, and I wanted him to understand that he wasn't dealing with the older, maybe less in shape officer that he had dealt with the previous night. And so the first thing out of my mouth, and I'm sorry, Mom, first thing out of my mouth wasn't stop police, wasn't freeze. It was not today, motherfucker. And I'm chasing this dude. And so at the time we didn't have body cameras, but we had the in-car cameras with the wireless mics. So they record until you get a certain audio until you get a certain distance away. So I'm not today, motherfucker. And then I put out hey, we're running towards these apartments. We're headed northbound. And then I said, I think it's this dude. And then I'm back to talking. And I was like, not today, bro. Not today. I said, you chose the wrong one. And he's got a good lead on me. But I'm chasing this dude down. So we ended up going off side street and then getting into these woods behind this apartment. And I'm chasing him. And at that point, my mic kind of, got out of range and stuff. So I only have that first portion recorded. But I'm just in this dude's ear the whole time talking, dude, you better not let me catch you, bro. All the stuff. And so by the time I get to him, his legs have given out, but he's still crawling with everything he's got, trying to get away. We're running through thorns, brush, all the stuff. I don't know how far it was. It was probably, half a mile, 3/4 of a mile. It was a far foot chase, middle of summer, so hot. I get all the way up to him, covering with the taser as he's crawling, but I'm getting up to him. And so anyway, I holster my taser and I roll him over. And if it's this guy, I've been in his ear the whole time. And I roll him over and I'm like, you're not. And I said the dude's name and he's crying, literally sobbing. He goes, no. I said, what's your name? And he's like, I'm Dylan. I was like, so confused because it wasn't who I thought I was chasing. It was just some random dude. I was like, put your hands behind your back, dude. Roll him over, hook him up. And come to find out, he had some warrants and some drugs. But the whole time I'm chasing, I took it so personally. So I'm talking smack to this dude while I'm chasing him. And it wasn't even the guy I was after, my old partner that I'd seen in the troop room, his dash cam was hilarious because so they kick on 30 seconds before. Once you hit lights, it has 30 seconds before. So his unit is sitting at the PD because he's in there typing. Well, then you see him run out, get in his car because I called out this foot pursuit. And then he's running lights and sirens through town. And the whole time he's like, damn it, Wing. I knew it, bro. What do you do? Yeah, he's like, I said, you said you were going to make 16 traffic stops and go home. I'm cussing me the whole way. But we caught him. There was a dude in the passenger seat who on my camera later, you see him get out. He looks around and he just grabs a backpack and starts walking away. And one of the other officers who were on the way, they end up snatching him up. And so it wasn't, but it was just funny. It was hilarious. And so for weeks after that, I'd go to the jail. Everybody was, oh, not today, motherfucker. Food stop. I'm sorry. Okay. It's heat of the moment. It is what it is. But, it was fun. I had a great time, man. There were guys that were good at everything on the troops I was on. So, we had some guys that were really good at finding drugs and chasing drugs. We had a couple guys that were really good at DWIs. Uh, I had a corporal on my troop. She's now a captain at the PD. She had come out of school, spent a long time as a SRO.
Mhm.
So all of your juvenile law stuff,
Oh, yeah.
domestic violence type stuff, man, I was surrounded for those first several years with really seasoned officers who knew what they were doing in their respective specialties. I mean, they were well rounded, but
Mhm.
I just got the opportunity as a young cop to learn from those guys and girls, and then had Randy, great supervisor, had your back.
Mhm.
He could fight. He could. I mean, he's Mr. Miyagi. He's the most
Oh, yeah.
unassuming little guy you've ever seen, but he could tie you up 10 ways from Sunday with bare hands, you know. And awesome dude, had our backs, and was just I had an awesome experience those first few years on patrol, just getting to do what I loved, you know,
Yeah.
chase bad guys, and at the time we've had some ebb and flow, so we were chase everything till the wheels fell off when I first started.
Mhm.
We had a little period of time where it was okay. Let's not do pursuits the way we were, but we're back
Mhm.
now. We're back being cops again, so that's a good thing. And pursuits are a that's kind of a hot topic.
Mhm.
Um, you need to be able to do them safely. But
Mhm.
the reality is the consequences of not chasing criminals
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
significantly worse than the consequences of chasing them.
Mhm.
And I think where people and departments and especially the media gets it twisted is they act like it's our decision. It's
Mhm.
not my decision, man. That guy ran. He gets a
Mhm.
vote too, and it's him that's putting all these people in jeopardy.
Mhm.
And we have a duty to stop crime and
Mhm.
to for there to be consequences. If there are no consequences, then society falls apart.
Mhm.
And so I'm adamantly for pursuits. There's exceptions to that as far as safety needs to be a factor, but when you get too concerned with safety and optics over our job, which is to arrest people and take people to jail and protect our citizens
Mhm.
from crime, I think there's a big disconnect there
Mhm.
with a lot of agencies. But um, uh, yeah, so being able to pursue cars and stuff, then that was a big deal, and we had a lot of fun there.
Had a time when they had a no pursuit policy, or
We did, yeah.
yeah.
And that was during a period where we had the chief that hired me. He was there for basically my first year, and then he retired, and he had been the chief there for it was 15 plus years whenever he retired, and so we kind of had a pretty significant status quo that was being maintained there.
Mhm.
This is what we're doing. That's what he wanted, and hey, man, that's cool. So new chief from an outside department came in, and he I didn't agree with everything he did, and
Mhm.
he was the one that ended up enacting the limiting our pursuit
Mhm.
abilities there towards the end of his time because he has since retired and we have a new chief now. But nobody on planet Earth will ever get me to say anything bad about that dude.
Mhm.
Um, he had did I agree with everything he did? No, but was everything he did extremely well thought out? And one of the things I respected the most about him is he sought out the opposite opinions.
Mhm.
So if he had something he was thinking about doing, he would seek out people to talk to about it that he knew would disagree with him,
Mhm.
and he would listen. And now that doesn't mean that he would cave to what he
Mhm.
did what he believed was right at the time. And it wasn't just a knee jerk, we're going liberal and pushing all in on media pressure and all that stuff by any means.
Mhm.
And there was some validity to the why he ended up kind of limiting our pursuits for a little bit. It wasn't a no pursuit policy by any means. It was just violent felonies in progress,
Mhm.
like the real restrictive, I guess
Mhm.
would be the way to say it. Um, but and while that was under his time, nobody on planet Earth will ever do me to say anything bad about that dude. I
Mhm.
highly respected him, and he was an excellent chief. But there were certain things I didn't agree with, and that was one of them.
Mhm.
So, um, but yeah, simultaneously with that, so again, I got on our SWAT team whenever I hit my year at the PD. So again, right place, right time. Super fortunate. They had an opening. They
Mhm.
had two openings. Whenever me and one of my very good friends, who's now the commander for the team, Wes Marsh, we got on SWAT together in 2017. Got to go to FBI SWAT Academy in Arkansas at the time. They were kind of the ones doing the best SWAT school in the
Mhm.
state. Unfortunately, they'd kind of gotten, I say unfortunately, at the time they were really squared away. I don't know what an FBI SWAT Academy would look like now, but
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm not saying anything bad about them, but I don't know. But at the time, it was great. It was excellent. 40-hour school, week
Mhm.
long course. It was a great, um, excellent course, excellent instructors, both the shooting package and then just your basic CQB stuff,
Mhm.
and really gave us a good foundation to then take and go back to our team and start, you know, learning the ropes
Yeah.
of a
Take
completely different animal. Yeah, which
nice.
is, you know, being on a SWAT team. So, um, at the time, my goal was to then make sniper. Me and Chris were talking, and I think that's probably every SWAT dude's dream is
Oh,
that
yeah.
I SWAT and I get sniper. Well, then getting on the team, I was like, well, I mean, sniper's cool, but like snipers don't go in the
I want
house.
entries.
Yeah, I want to go in the
I want
house. So
entries. Yeah.
I've been an assaulter my whole time on SWAT.
That's
So I'm one of our chemical guys. So if we have to go to gas or something, that's one of my areas. But I'm primarily an assaulter. But
nice.
I've enjoyed that. I enjoyed it a lot. So um,
Well, those are great stories, but the only thing you got to watch is the 60-year-old elderly comment
uh,
because I'm 56.
yeah,
And it's like
yeah,
it's like elderly. Wait a
yeah,
minute.
yeah. Well, yeah, not a clear criminal. Let me put it that way. Yeah, not who you'd expect to be fleeing from the police. So,
Yeah.
yeah, obviously no disrespect, but um, yeah, it was a great time. I was super fortunate.
Let's get into your shooting. You've been in two, right?
Yes,
You can talk about both if you want, or
good,
one. Kind of get into that, and then we'll uh, go on from there.
cool. Yeah, so my first one was in 2018. So it was August 2018. So I had just hit my 2 year mark as an officer. So had already been shooting with Rusty at that point. I think I talked earlier, and I don't want to miss anybody that I owe, you know, stuff to.
Hmm.
I was hungry for anything that I could get my hands on to be as prepared as I could possibly be. So during that first 2 years, I had read On Killing
Hmm.
by Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman.
Gross movie.
I had read On Combat. So On Killing was good, but it didn't cover like the physiological side
Hmm.
of you know, that extreme stress stuff. So I then through that found On Combat, had read that. Um, I had watched Jared Reston had put out a 2 hour seminar on YouTube, and actually in thinking about trying to remember all the things that I had seen prior to, you know, my first shooting.
Hmm.
I found that video again. It was on, I think it was Carry Trainer's
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
YouTube page,
Uh-huh.
and I watched that when it came out. It came out in 2017, and I had watched that, and he talked. I learned so much from that, talking about pumps and switches.
Hmm.
There was a study I had read talking about pistol calibers of which one is best, and the point of the article was pistols just kind of suck because they had three different instances where um, rounds on target in what we would deem good, you
Hmm.
know, stop the threat areas of the human body, 9 millimeter, 40, and 45 had all failed in these
Hmm.
respective deals or these respective shootings. And so, again, just being hungry, and trying to be as prepared as I could be. So I was watching anything, reading anything I get my hands on, just trying to learn and prepare for that eventuality.
Hmm.
That I again preparing for it for when it was going to happen, not if. You know, I mentioned it earlier. My wife was pregnant with our first when I got hired, or was pregnant with our first prior to, and then she was pregnant with our second when I got hired. And so we had my second daughter. So I've got two daughters and a son now. Ella is my oldest; she's 10, and then Natalie, who she'll be 9 in December, and then I got little Dave, who's about to be 3. And so, but at the time, it was just my two girls, and so you know, being a dad and stuff, man, I wanted to go home. I got a bunch of years I'm looking forward to, and that was always the goal, you know, um, not seeking out problems and everything like that, but wanted to be prepared if that problem came
Hmm.
knocking, you know, and um, so anyway, that led to I'd been shooting with Ryan for about or shooting with Rusty for about a year, and training at different places and stuff. And um, anyway, August 2018. So night shift. It was a Saturday night. I had got moved off of my original troop due to staffing and being a low guy on patrol. You're the one that gets moved if somebody leaves something or whatever. So
Hmm.
anyway, I got moved to this other troop and been working on that troop for about 3-ish months. I think at that time, maybe 4 months. Not a long period of time. And kind of a different speed troop. That troop I came from were a bunch of proactive officers. troop that I went to didn't have a lot of proactivity on it.
Mhm.
Good dudes and nice enough guys and good officers, but just not that run and gun young officers like the troop I'd been on. But I didn't let that deter me, man. I was still kind of doing my thing, yeah, taking calls and stuff, but just getting after it as much as I could, and just having a good time. So um, this night it was a Saturday night. Uh, about it was about halfway through the shift, so I think the call came out around 12:50 something, 12:55, I think, somewhere in there, in the evening time. And I was at the police department working on a report, and then the call came out in my area. So the city's split up into three beats, so that was my area, and the call came out as a just a domestic disturbance, verbal disturbance. Nothing physical had occurred, but it resulted in someone calling 911 and requesting law enforcement to get there. So I leave the PD as I'm walking out. My sergeant at the time, he walked out. I can't remember if we had 4 or 5 working that night, but it wasn't unusual for the sergeant to go back
Mhm.
officer, just because he was close. So he's like, I'll come with you and go to that call. Cool. And so on the way there, we have our in-car, computers, and so I had checked our CAD system to see what our previous history at that house had been,
Mhm.
because you can kind of scroll through and see other calls. And so from that, I was able to determine that we had been there a few times over the last few weeks or months. I don't remember the exact time period, but fairly recently we had been there several times for verbal disturbances.
Mhm.
And so from that, I was able to gather that there was a couple living there that were in their 60s. It appeared that they were going through a divorce, and it was pretty messy, pretty toxic, pretty
Mhm.
volatile. Up to that point, no one had gone to jail, um, but they weren't getting along, and so they had called the cops a few different times. So cool, we got my kind of backstory. I'm on the way. Um, I arrived at the call and uh, parked, a house down just like you're supposed to, and started walking up. And the wife was standing at the front door, and she uh, greeted me as I'm walking across the yard. Sarge was right behind me. So he comes walking up. We basically arrive at the same time, and,
Mhm.
and I'm walking up to this house. And she's, hey, how's it going? I said, hey, what can we do for you? And she's like, come on in. So we step inside to the residence, and you come in the front door. The front door was a wooden door with like an oval glass, kind of shaded glass, window in the
Mhm.
center of the door. And as soon as you stepped in, there was a wall to your left, or to my left, that then dumped into a hallway, and then it was an open living room to my right, but a pretty small. This was in a part of town that was kind of the cookie cutter home type.
Mhm.
They were all 15, 20-ish years old houses, but all the houses were kind of the same. It's one of those companies that just came in and built a whole bunch of houses as a development deal. So anyway, got the wall, and then the open living room area, and then the kitchen was up here through a kind of a doorway, and there was like a bar right here. But then immediately to my right was a couch that was facing, towards the main part of the living room. So it kind of created like a little hallway, like
Mhm.
just kind of funneling area. So anyway, I step in with the wife. Sarge is right behind me at the door, and then the husband, or male subject, is directly past her, and nobody's screaming and yelling. Nobody's freaking out, going crazy. Again, they're kind of an elderly couple, but in their 60s. Um, um, and I guess that's all to say. Just not they were regular people. Just regular people having a disagreement, whatever.
Mhm.
So I immediately say, "Hey, what's going on?" And the wife begins to explain. She said, "Well, my husband and I are splitting up, but I'm trying to leave for the night. But he's saying he's going to change the locks on me if I leave, and I don't think he can rightfully do that." Well, then the husband interjected and started saying, "Well, the house is in my name."
Mhm.
He was kind of irritated, but they immediately start what we know happens on if you
Mhm.
don't separate the people, then they start trying to talk over each other.
Yeah.
I didn't separate them initially because they weren't. I mean, everything was fine, and then it started going. So I interrupt him, and I said, "Well, hang on." And what I was about to say was, in Arkansas, it's joint property, so like, it doesn't matter that the house is in your name; y'all are married, so you can change the locks, and ma'am, you can kick the door in when you get home.
Mhm.
This is until y'all are, the divorce is finalized. It's not yours and hers; it's y'all's. Um, but when I went to interrupt him, he then started talking over me
Mhm.
and started escalating further, kind of. And he said, "No, the house is in my name," and started, getting louder. So then I interrupted him and I said, "Hey, hang on a second, let me finish." And I started trying to explain to him exactly what I was trying to, but then he
Mhm.
escalated even further. So it went from everybody's cool and calm. She literally, "Hey, how's it going?" at the front door to this, me and this dude are kind of yelling at each other.
Mhm.
And so um, I said, "What you need to do, actually," I said, "Nope, stop. What you need to do is step outside and talk to this other officer." So we're not getting anywhere with them talking where they can, hear each other and they're arguing. So he's escalating with me. So, hey, we're just gonna go ahead and separate them.
Mhm.
Uh, Completely within my right to do that as far as Arkansas law.
Mhm.
Um, I knew and had an understanding of domestic violence situations are some of the most dangerous calls guys could go on. I don't know what's all in this house. Was well within my legal right to, hey man, go ahead and step outside
Mhm.
and talk to this other officer and get them separated. Well, then he immediately refused and said, "No, I'm not stepping out of my house," and started kind of backing up, going towards the interior of the home, towards the kitchen area. And I said, "No, you're gonna step outside and talk to this other officer," and I start taking a step towards him. Well, I'm already kind of processing, okay, I have a 911 call. So a potential crime has occurred. I'm trying to investigate that. Um, this guy's escalating for no reason. I don't know if there's alcohol on board. I don't know,
Mhm.
maybe potential drug use. I don't know. I have a whole bunch of things that I don't know and I'm trying to investigate. And by him escalating, he's inhibiting my ability to investigate.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of already thinking maybe I have enough for at minimum putting him in handcuffs for officer safety. I can articulate the fact that he's trying to retreat into the house and that he's not giving me a chance to even talk and figure out what's going on. So I'm starting to articulate that in my head. Well, then the sergeant behind me kind of interjects and says, "Well, hey, no, 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 that's fine, ma'am. How about you step outside and sir, you can stay in here." So um, kind of had a choice at that point in time.
Mhm.
I can I didn't believe that was a good alternative to what
Mhm.
I was trying to maintain the safety of the scene, but um, it was either buck Sarge or try to get on board with his plan. And so I made the best decision I could in the moment and said, and went, okay, well, I guess we'll do that. But then I immediately knew, well, I was kind of already
Mhm.
articulating my arrest in my head, kind of don't have to report that guy. So I said, well, okay, Sarge, well, in that case, how about you stay in here with him and I'll step outside with her since I just kind of lost my rapport. He says, okay, cool. So dude was still kind of yelling, talking loud,
Mhm.
but he was at the time that I stepped out, he was still right there in the living room. And I step out with the wife out onto the front porch, and there was a screen door, but I kept it open with my back to it, like against the wall behind me, and then I
Mhm.
just kind of pulled the door to. I didn't shut it all the way, and then I can literally see Sarge
Mhm.
right inside the door right here through that oval glass. So I started talking to her. I said, Okay, well, man, that's kind of crazy. So what's going on?" So she starts explaining again. Well, she was able to get out. Uh, my husband and I are splitting up. He's very angry and just starting to explain to me what's going
Mhm.
on. And Sarge comes over the radio, and my call sign radio number was 464. Um, and he said 464, get in here on the radio. Based on his voice and stuff, I thought maybe he was in a fight or something.
Mhm.
But again, in my peripheral right here, he was just right there, and I'd only been outside for a few seconds.
Mhm.
Well, I with my left hand, I grab the door and push it open, and I kind of already had my right hand on my gun, like processing. So as I step in, again, you have the couch and you have the wall,
Walls.
and Sarge is about where you're at. We're not
Mhm.
very far away, maybe 10 feet at the most. And he's looking to my right, and his left hand is out in front of him like this, and his right hand is on his gun, but he hasn't drawn yet. So I turn to where he's looking, and I see the male subject is standing in the living room. So me and Sarge are probably 10 feet away, and then the male subject was probably 12 feet away
Mhm.
in the living room. There was a chair there that he was kind of standing in front of, and I realized he's got a pistol in each hand. He had a semi-automatic 9mm in one hand and a 38 revolver in the other hand. But they're down at his side.
Mhm.
They're in his hands, but he's standing and he's yelling. He's saying some kind of sovereign citizen type stuff that
Mhm.
my house is my domain, and kind of yelling. And so as I step in, see Sarge, look where Sarge is looking, see dude with guns. I'm clearing my holster and drawing
Mhm.
on this guy. And um, I hear Sarge kind of saying, put the guns down. He asked him, why do you have the guns? Guy's saying, I have the right of domain. And I'm based on the tone of everything going, I was processing, and I thought, no, hey, fuck all that. Like, you need to drop the guns. Like,
Yeah.
so I yelled. I said, drop the guns. I said, I'm not going to tell you again. Again, I'm punched out on him.
Mhm.
Two hands, good grip, all the stuff, and standing still, not in any kind of weird shooting position. Um, I said, drop the guns. I'm not going to tell you again. And then I yell very, very loudly, very adamantly, drop them right now. Well, when I did that, he was just staring at Sarge. So he's looking this way at Sarge, and then I'm pointed at him
Mhm.
here. And he kind of, that was when we talk about the physiological effects of that extreme
Mhm.
stress and that, fight or flight and what your body does, adrenaline. That was when time went and like slowed
Mhm.
down for me. And so I was almost having a full conversation with myself and thinking through out loud in my head, processing what I was seeing.
Mhm.
And it felt like everything slowed way down. So I see him kind of almost like sigh in
Mhm.
resolve, and then both guns come up and they're going towards Sarge. So he's
Mhm.
bringing both guns up to aim at my sergeant. So he's here, my sergeant's here. He's aiming towards Sarge. So as his arms come up, I start shooting. Uh, Again, in my head, I was shooting like it was
Yeah.
just real slow. And I was going from my eyes were going from my rear sight to my front sight to the subject, back to my front side, back to my rear side, like just tracking as I'm shooting. And every trigger pull, I mean, I was bang, bang, that fast. Um, so I fired two rounds, and I have like my first kind of massive, almost intrusive thought. You think weird stuff.
Mhm.
Different guys have. I mean, everybody has different experiences, but my thought was, am I hitting him? Because
Mhm.
this isn't like the movies at all. Like, he's not flying backwards,
Mhm.
And so, like, side picture, side alignment, boom, just still squeezing. So that his hands had got to about 3/4 of the way up to like fully extended shoulder width. So they're about here. Well, as I was shooting, they kept getting lower and lower. And so as I'm shooting, the guns are getting lower. And um I'm trying to figure out if I'm even hitting him. Well,
Mhm.
then he was wearing a light blue t-shirt, and I saw his shirt move like almost like
Mhm.
an impact.
Mhm.
If you like slowed down, like I said, it just slow motion.
Mhm.
I could see the ripple of his shirt. So I was like, okay, I think I'm hitting him. Well, then I started seeing red uh, coming from his chest area. And so it's like, okay, I am hitting him. Keep doing what I'm doing. And the guns got lower and lower. Once they got to his side, he dropped both of them. Like almost as soon as they got to here, boom, he drops both guns. So at that point, I stopped shooting. I took my sport hand off, and I was able to grab my lapel mic, and I was able to radio 464 PD, shots fired, shots fired.
Mhm.
Um, During that time, while I was radioing, I heard a shot from my left, which is where Sarge was. But I was locked in on the bad guy. I didn't see
Mhm.
what he was doing. Well, then he fires that round. I was able to radio shots fired, and he fired while I was radioing, so you can hear that on the radio traffic. But then the bad guy was just standing there, hands down at his sides, and he's looking at the two pistols at his feet. And at that point, he like takes a deep breath and then reaches towards his feet with his hands, makes an overt move to reach for the guns again. So um, at that point, my trigger finger out, my brain process, uh-oh, we have a problem.
Mhm.
And then my trigger finger outran my mouth. So I was still aiming at him like this. And so I fired one round before my hands made it back.
Mhm.
That was my one round that missed. It was up here in the wall. Like,
Mhm.
that little guy, don't worry about that little guy. Super troopers. But uh, then the second round hit him. He was bent over kind of at an angle. And so that one hit him in his arm as he's reaching with this hand, hit him in his arm, up through his arm, and then across his chest, and he fell over at that point. Well, after I'd fired those rounds, I then yelled, "Don't reach for it! Don't reach for it!"
Mhm.
So my again, my trigger finger kind of outran my mouth there, but I was processed that I just fired before as I was trying to tell him, don't reach for it. So he then fell over fully on the ground. And at that time, I heard my sergeant attempting to get out on the radio. So at the time, we've since got new radios and stuff. They're much better, but at the time, it's pretty old technology, and we didn't have good reception across town. So you had to be on different repeaters to get out, depending upon where you're at in town. Well, I hear him radio his call sign, and he said, "Shots fired, PD. I've been hit." So I look over at him and I said, "You hit, Sarge? Are you good?" And he said, "Yeah, I got hit. I got hit right in the vest." And he's getting up off the ground at that point. So, whenever he radioed it, I heard him saying it, but I could hear based on the static on my lapel mic that he hadn't got out. So then I was able to radio 464 PD, gave his call sign that he'd been hit. We need EMS and first responders. Dispatched, 10 forward me, and I immediately then moved towards the suspect. So he's laying on the ground, pistols were at where his feet was, but he had just fallen over, so they were still by his feet. And he was still breathing, but he was kind of doing the death moan, death gurgle thing. But he was still conscious. And from that Jared Reston video, understanding not turning the switch off, people can go flat, and the need to possibly reload. So I didn't know how many rounds I had fired at the time. I come to find out later I'd fired 7, 5 with the initial and then 2 more. I knew I'd fired about half a magazine. So I stepped up to him and I kicked the pistols. In my head, I kicked them far away, like they were gone. These you can delete these. Like these are no longer a threat. In reality, I kicked them like 6 feet over here, but just got them away from him. And then while standing over him, I did a tactical magazine exchange. So I pulled a new mag and then pulled the mag from gun and retained that mag and put it back on my belt. So I had a full gun in case he came back up and it was a problem again. Well, then Sarge was radioing, dispatch saying kind of the same stuff. I don't think he realized because he had been shot. The bullet hitting dead center of his chest actually broke his handcuff key, which was in his shirt, but then his vest had stopped it. I didn't realize in the chaos of the gunfight itself that he had even got a round off. But he had fired 1 round with his 38 special, and it had hit Sarge. Directly center of his chest. So, at that point, I'd changed mags. I'm still kind of covering the suspect. Me and Sarge have a conversation. I checked on him. I was asking him several times, "Hey, are you good?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm good." And I ended up going over and I ran my hand down his shirt just to make sure that the bullet had not gone through. Did a blood sweep behind his vest, and then I was able to radio that he was okay. Like just letting dispatch know, "Hey, I still need EMS," but his vest stopped it. And he's 1050. He's okay. So from there, we kind of have a couple seconds of lull. I think he told me, he said, "Hey," because I'm still just kind of covering down on the bad guy. And he said, "Hey, I think you can holster." And I was like, "Yeah, roger that." And so I holster up, and we kind of had this, "What the fuck just happened?" Kind of conversation. He's saying some stuff. I'm, just kind of like, that was crazy. Well, at that point, I'm looking at the bad guy, and I see he has several shots in his chest. And I told Sarge to say, "Hey, all I've got is a tourniquet. I don't have anything to try to stop bleeding." So he said, "Well, run out to your car and grab your medical kit." All of our patrol units had a medical kit in the back, and he said, "Let's try." At that point, though, he already didn't appear to be breathing. But I still ran outside. So the wife was in the front yard. She was pretty hysterical when I came out. She was crying. I can't remember exactly what she said, but she didn't ask about him. At first, she said, "Are y'all okay?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." I said, "We're good. We're good." She goes, Is he okay?" And I said, "No, ma'am, I don't think so." I said, "Can you stand over here for me?" And I kind of directed her off to the side. So I had the slow motion thing happen during, and then I experienced a little bit of time distortion afterwards. If you asked me on scene how long it was before backup got there, I wouldn't even blink, and I'd have been probably 45 minutes. Like that's, it was about 45 minutes before somebody got there. It was like 2 minutes. It was nothing, but I remember thinking like, where is everyone? Like this, the city ain't that big, man. Like, where's I need some people here? Yeah. Where are they? What's going on? But Anyway, I go out and get the med kit, run back inside, put gloves on, and check for a pulse. And at that point, he's completely gone. And so it was at that moment that I went back outside. As some officers were arriving on scene, so they're starting to tape off the yard and kind of starting your normal stuff. And the fire truck pulls up, and that was when Dave Moore, my best friend in the whole world now. At the time, we were acquaintances. It's kind of weird how we met. I say weird. Him and his wife were pregnant with their first, same time me and my wife were, and we both went to. Before I was a cop, I was at the bank. We went to a birth class together, like
Oh, really?
like a couple's birth class, what to expect for first time, parents. And he was in, so like I met him then, knew he was a fireman, but then it was, I mean, we did the whole birth class thing, and then I didn't see him for a couple years because it was 2 years later that I got hired at the PD. Um, and then I'd seen him on a couple calls. I was like, Dave, and he's like, oh, Wayne, what's up, dude? And kind of started there, but um, uh, uh, I'll never forget him running off the off the fire truck, like sprinting, dude. Big mustache, fireman, outfit, get up, bag, and he's yelling. He said, "Where's Hicks? Where's Hicks?" Which was my sergeant. And I said, "He's over here by the ambulance." I said, "But he's good." They didn't get the updated information that the vest had stopped the round, so they were responding thinking that the officer had been hit, and that truck pulled up, and then he was sprinting off that thing to get to one of us.
Mm.
Super happy to see him there. And that was kind of the beginning of us ended up building a much deeper friendship. And um, we're brothers now. I mean, I love that guy. But uh, so they got Hicks treated. The vest did fully stop it. He had a pretty good bruise on his chest. I I knew. So again, we didn't have body cams at the time. This was 2018. We got body cams. I think it was 20. We got like an initial set of like test body cams for the kind of cameras we had in our cars, but then we didn't fully roll out an entire, like, everyone's got body cams until 2021, I believe. Might have been 2020. It was a couple years after that. One, I guess it was a funding thing, having get the money and all the stuff and trying to get the right program and the right body cam and all that stuff. So, but we had our in-car cameras and then that wireless mic. So mine was recording during all this. So the the whole audio of the shooting was recorded. And so I knew I still had that mic on. So I did all of the things I thought I was supposed to do as far as like, so I'd rendered aid. I had the other officers were securing the crime scene. Like, but once I did everything that I believed needed to be done, I was like, I need to get this thing off me. Like, okay, I'm now done. I hadn't officially been relieved of duty yet, but I knew it was coming. Like, okay, my responsibilities are done. So I was able to get my mic and put it up in the car. And so at that point, the last officer involved shooting that Van Buren had was in 2011, the courthouse shooting.
Oh, courthouse. Yeah.
Yep. And so uh, it had been, I mean, a bunch of years. And so I kind of knew in general how this would all play out, but nobody had ever sat down and said, this is exactly what happens. So I was kind of, I knew I was probably going to get interviewed. In our case, Arkansas State Police typically handles most officer involved shootings from other agencies in the state. And so in our case, that's what our agency uses. We call Arkansas State Police, and they handle the investigation portion. There's a separate internal investigation for the policy side, but as far as the actual homicide, or if there's not a death of a person, just the actual officer involved shooting on the potential criminal investigation, that's all handled by Arkansas State Police. So one thing I didn't want to happen was I didn't want my wife or my parents to find out from the news. Now it was the middle of the night, so but you never know. And so I didn't want to take any chances. So I actually stepped out to the side and I was able to call my wife, woke her up. Because again, at this point, this is just after 1 o'clock in the morning. Um, Called her and said, "Hey, I just got in a gunfight and killed a guy. I'm okay. I don't know what happens next. I love you. When did you hear from me?" She said, "Okay, I love you too." Click. Dial my dad. My dad's a heavy sleeper, notorious for not having this going on. So ring, 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 goes to voicemail. So I call my mom, and my mom answers, and I said, "Hey, give the phone to dad." So then I hear her. She's like, "Tom, Tom," and dad's like, what?" And then he's like, "Hello." And I said, "Hey, Dad, I'm okay. I just got in a gunfight, and I think I killed a guy. I'm good, but I don't know what happens next. I want y'all to hear it from me. And he said, oh, okay. I said, I love you. And he said, I love you too. And then I said, all right, go back to sleep. Click. Like he was going to go to sleep. you know? But I was, kind of hear the moment thing. But anyway, so from that point, we had a lieutenant working that night, working the DWI task force stuff. So he came to the scene, was one of he was the first ranking officer that got to scene besides Sarge. And then another lieutenant arrived. He lived pretty close, but the first, besides the guy that was on duty, I don't know which one got there first, but here's what I do know is the first actual ranking officer I saw besides the one that was already on duty was at the time he had been chief for a year, and then he showed up on scene, and that meant a lot to me. And he came walking up to me, and he said, "Hey, are you good?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And I was like in official mode, right? So I said, "Hey, this is what," and I go to start telling what happened. He just held up his hand. He goes, "Whoa." He said, "I don't care about any of that." He said, "Are you good?" I said, "Yes, sir, I'm good." He said, "Okay, cool." He said, "We'll get you out of here shortly. But I don't care what happened. I just want to know if you're good." And I said, "Yes, sir, I'm good. I appreciate it." So a little bit later, they had an officer take me home. So just like most departments, standard deal is you get put on, paid leave and while the investigation happens and stuff. Um, Unfortunately, in law enforcement or law enforcement in the United States, we learn lessons the hard way most of the time. And so a very negative thing that happened with the courthouse shooting was those guys had to interview that night or that day, do a walkthrough. There wasn't a lot of, there was zero decompression time prior to any interviews and all that. And so luckily the department had recognized that. And so they had put some other stuff in play to where our department requires you to take 72 hours now before you give a statement. You get 72 hours to chill out. And um, so I got taken home by another officer, and I got home. But at the time, it was still up in the air whether I was going to have to interview that night because nobody had told me that. That was what the department was doing, but I didn't know that. And so the lieutenant over patrol was calling me, and he said, "Hey, I'll let you know what happens next. Just chill at home. You don't have to do anything, but just I'll be calling you here in a minute." And so, um, something else, pertinent facts. So that the story of the shooting, I mean, that was a pretty involved set of stuff that happened that occurred from the time the wife greeted me at the front door to the time the last shot was fired was 1 minute and 17 seconds. It went from everything's literally fine to the end of the gunfight. So everything happened really quick. And I was pretty spun up. I mean, absolutely. Like on one hand, in the moment, I believe I performed well based on the training I had. But I was tuned up after that. So I get home, took a shower, told my wife what happened, and I put like shorts and t-shirt on, and then I'm chilling on the couch waiting on the phone call from lieutenant, and I was like, well, oh no, what if I have to go give a statement? Well, here so I went and threw a polo shirt on and some tack pants. I come back and sit down. Well, then I'm sitting there and then I can't sit down, so I'm kind of pacing. I'm like, well, no, I don't even want to wear this. I want to wear shorts. So I go back and change again, and I'm kind of just pacing back and forth. Well, then the lieutenant called me and he said, "Hey, I just got a hold of captain, who at the time was our second in command. It wasn't the same captain that hired me. He had retired. So it was a captain that had been our SWAT commander when I first got on the SWAT team. Good dude. But he said, "Hey, I told captain that state police, they were already on scene and stuff now, and it was real cut and dried. I mean, it was a gunfight between good guys and bad guys. Everything was real cut and dried. And so state police were wanting to go ahead and knock out these interviews." And he told captain that. Well, captain said he was at an event, so he was kind of out of pocket. And he said, "You tell them." In no short words, he said, "You tell them that they can't talk to him for 72 hours, and if they have a problem with that, tell them I'll call them in the morning and tell them myself. They got my guys get 72 hours." And that meant a lot to I appreciated that from then. So at that point, the lieutenant called me and said, "Hey, Kappa said you got 72 hours, bro. You're good. You just do whatever you need to do. You're home chilling." They had taken my firearm on scene, but that was a mistake. They would take it, but we had already written a policy to where you are given a replacement in that moment. That kind of got lost in translation there. So it was at that point, Lieutenant Phone said, "Hey, I know they took your gun. They weren't supposed to take it without giving you another one. I'm literally going to send a dude to your house right now." He said, "I know the answer to this. I figure you probably have a few pistols, but," he said, "if you like, I'm sorry that happened, and I'm going to send a dude to your house right now if you want another one." I was like, "No, I'm good. Like I got other guns, I'm good. So I appreciate that too. And that was the thing that's kind of a big deal with guys.
Mhm.
You just had to rely on this piece of equipment that hopefully you've been training with and hopefully is kind of part of who you are. And then when they take that from you, well, the only other times they take that from you is if you're in trouble. So there's that. And you just took my lifeline. Like that thing just got me out of the worst situation I've ever been
Mhm.
in and then get out of that. But I was good, but I was grateful that I fully support that policy. But I was good at the time. Like it didn't bother me that
Mhm.
they had messed that up with me. And it was not wasn't on purpose, you know. Um so anyway, from there, I had symptoms wise and stuff. I was still pacing. My wife was just kind of watching me, you know, pace back and forth. I couldn't, I mean, I was home. I don't know how, it was for sure less than an hour
Wow.
afterwards. I'm at my house
Mhm.
and I'm still jacked all the way up. And
Mhm.
so, prior to that, trying to kind of handle this whole mental health stuff with law enforcement and trying to not be a statistic and do it different than, you know, not wanting to be not prepared. If I had like a rough shift on patrol, I would just hit the gym before I came home and kind of
Mhm.
sort that out. And so my wife's watching me pace and she's like, "Hey, you know, I won't be mad if you like go to the gym right now, right? Because you should probably go to the gym because I can't sit still." I was like, "That's a great idea." So I was already wearing my shorts and t-shirt in because I changed 3 times. So I grabbed my, you know, my keys and my stuff and I go walking outside and I realized my car's at the police
Gas
department.
station.
So I had to call one of the patrol guys, "Hey, come get me. I'm trying to get to my car." And so he came, got me, took me to the PD. I got my car, went to a gym, the CrossFit gym that I was training at the time. And I lifted weights for probably 3 hours.
Mhm.
Just what I should have done, hindsight being 2020, because I was still just jacked on adrenaline. I should have maxed all my lifts because I promise you I still wouldn't beat them.
Yeah.
Like, right, I should have just, all right, what's my PR in deadlift? All these different ones, just crush everything. Because I jumped up, did 20 pull ups in a row, dropped down, kind of walked around, did 20 more pull ups, and then ended up just writing a CrossFit workout on the board, heavy weights, threw on some
Mhm.
loud music, and just beat myself down for a few hours, just trying to get. And it took hours before I
Mhm.
was physically calm. Um, After that, I hopped in my vehicle. At the time, I was driving a 2009 Pontiac G8 GT. So it was
Mhm.
like a four-door grocery getter looking mom car with a 6-liter V8 in it. I love that car so much. And I went and filled up with gas and then just kind of went for a drive. Drove north, drove for probably 45 minutes. Blackout's the wrong word, but I was just kind of just thinking, just lost in my thoughts
Mhm.
driving, and then turned around, drove back home. Um, I knew from the on combat the uh the potential for so understand that there's chemicals released and all that stuff, and one of the worst things you can do is introduce other chemicals
Mhm.
in that interim time to that kind of muddies the water and it will slow down your process for everything going back to normal after a high stress, you know, critical incident type event. And so that was the only time I took anything to sleep for the next few weeks. And so I just crushed like a little cap of NyQuil or whatever,
Mhm.
or ZQuil, I think is the sleep one. And I was able to get about 30 minutes of sleep and then I was wide awake. And then I didn't sleep. So at that point, so Saturday night into Sunday morning, I slept 30 minutes Sunday morning. I didn't sleep again until Wednesday night.
Wow.
And I was zero emotions as far as like I didn't feel guilty. I
Mhm.
wasn't It was none of that. My resting heart rate just sitting at home on the couch was 130 to 140. Just some so I'd just be sitting there and I'd take a deep breath like I was jogging every few seconds. And I couldn't get it to slow down, like no matter what I did. And I stayed away from alcohol. I didn't take any, you know, I didn't eat any other pills or anything,
Mhm.
but I was working out every day thinking that would help, but it just didn't. My resting heart rate was high for about the next week. And so I was up for 3 days, crashed Wednesday night for about 8 hours, and then was up for 2 days, crashed Saturday night. And then it started ebbing back off
Leveling back up.
and getting back to a bit more normal. Um, that would have scared me real bad if I hadn't read that book.
Mhm.
And so I knew about that possibility beforehand. So I wasn't weirded out by it. I knew not to introduce other chemicals and to just let it be. And so I didn't fight it. That was another thing. I think Jared Reston talked about it in his video about like just sleepless nights.
Mhm.
And I've taken that even today. There's some nights, no matter how tired I am, no matter what I got
Mhm.
going on, just lay there and you're awake. And so I quit just laying there. Oh, cool. I guess I'm staying up tonight. Just get up
Mhm.
and go, you know, watch a movie, go to the gym, do whatever I'm doing, you know. Um, So during that week, I just stayed busy. Like I was home with the kids and my wife during the day, but then like at night, I wasn't sleeping. So like I had a good friend of mine who I went to the academy with. He was on night shift at another department, very pretty small department. So they
Mhm.
wanted a lot going on. I went and sat at his police department with him all night long,
Mhm.
one of the nights. And then my old one of my FTOs previously, he's one of my good friends now. He's the chief deputy of Crawford County, Brad Wiley. Awesome dude, huge mentor in my life. I love that guy. Both mentor as a cop and mentor out. Like he's a good man. Love that dude a lot. And he was off one night, so like I went to his house and I'd never even thrown darts before. He's like, "You want to throw darts?" I was like, "Sure." So he and I for like 9 hours just threw darts. Um, and just accepted that it'll ebb and flow back off. So again, it was about a week before it fully started getting back to normal. Um, so during shooting, I had time slowed down. Um,
Mhm.
had the intrusive thoughts, kind of conversation with myself. Um, had the time distortion afterwards, as far as like how long it was before backup got
Mhm.
there. Um, and then
Auditory exclusion. Did
auditory.
you have that?
Yep. So I had both. So my shots were muffled. My ears didn't ring at all.
Yeah.
There was just thum, thum, thum. Um, and obviously, I said earlier that to me, I was pulling the trigger like it was
Mhm.
slow shots, and
Yeah. Slow
it
motion.
was bang, and then bang bang, like very very quick. But in my head, it was very quite a bit slower,
Mhm.
and very deliberate trigger pulls. But then I could hear my brass hitting the wall,
So
so it was
yeah.
thump thump, and then I could hear tink tink as it was hitting the plaster, but kind of to
Yeah.
my right. So that was weird. Um, uh, Afterwards, so in that book on combat again, and I can't say this enough. And if there's any officer listening to this, any young officer, old officer, anybody, knowledge is power. And
Mhm.
especially when you're talking about human response to things, we're all different. All of our bodies respond different ways.
Mhm.
Um, but there is a pretty wide gambit of possibility of how you could respond, how you're and outside of your own control. And just having the knowledge that this could happen,
Mhm.
I believe, was the biggest thing in me not having any mental issues
Mhm.
afterwards or any kind of what I would call PTSD from it,
Mhm.
because these were all physiological things that occurred. Right?
Mhm.
I didn't feel guilty.
Yeah.
I didn't feel it. I mean, it was a gunfight. Like he tried to kill us. He shot my sergeant in the chest. I shot him back. It's
Mhm.
about as cut and dried as it gets. It is what it is. And I had two little girls I'm trying to get home to and a wife I'm
Mhm.
trying to get home to. Like, it is what it is. He got a vote and he voted.
Mhm.
But the physiological side would have freaked me out, especially
Mhm.
like the not sleeping if I didn't know this beforehand. But because I'd read that book, I
Mhm.
knew that these were possibilities. So panic attacks are a thing that you can have afterwards. And so it's in simple, dumb guy, cop Justin terms. Panic attack is your body going into fight or flight for no reason,
Mhm.
right? Whatever it perceives, and then it triggers a chemical response that your heart rate goes through the roof and everything gets weird for a second. If you don't know what that is and aren't prepared for that to possibly happen, that's where people then like it happens and then they freak out and it becomes a deal.
Elevated even more.
But if you know ahead of time that this could happen, and in my case, and in the book, it talks about not only that it can happen, but all you have to do is oxygenate your blood. Like, so combat breathing, four count through your nose, hold four count out through your mouth. And if you'll do that for 30 to 40 seconds, everything goes whoosh, it comes right back down. So it was, I had two after the shooting. It was Monday. So shooting happened Saturday night. Was up all day Sunday night, and then Monday morning I leave my house to go to the PD to work out because we also had a job at PD. And so I pulled out of my driveway, turned onto my road, and just I hadn't even driven 100 yards, and I just heart rate just goes through the roof, and I was like what? Oh shit, I'm having a panic attack. Oh, I don't pull over, four count through my nose, hold
Mhm.
four count through my mouth, about 40 seconds, I'm good to go, like totally back to normal. And I was like, well, that wasn't so bad. Take off, drive again. And so um I had that one then. Sleep was back to normal about 2 weeks after. It started getting back to normal after that first week, and it was back to fully sleeping at night, awake during the day.
Mhm.
Um or sleeping, I was going back to night shift or whatever. But anyway, sleeping for 8 hours and all the stuff, being
Yeah.
whatever normal is for a cop that rotates
Yeah.
nights and days. Um uh The second panic attack I had, which was my only other thing that happened, was it was 6 weeks after the shooting. So I went back to work at like 2.5 weeks. So with us, you have to get cleared by a shrink, and then at the time we didn't have any mandatory counseling other than just getting the
Mhm.
honest, you're not crazy or a problem, and then the criminal investigation has to be concluded. And so state police sent their stuff over. I did my interview with them, and those guys were incredible,
Mhm.
incredible, like super professional. There was no it's not that they were even quote unquote on my side. It was just very objective. Hey, we're
Mhm.
here to investigate this. In the interview, wasn't just completely professional. Like
Yeah.
I was at ease with it. I walked into it pretty defensive as far as like in my head of how this was going to go.
Mhm.
But man, they were great. Nothing bad to say about those guys at all. And um, uh, the then they send the case file to the prosecutor. Prosecutor rules, hey, you're good. Prosecutor hit me up and said, hey, got a case file, you're good. When do you want me to let the PD know you can go back to work?
Oh, yeah.
He said, I can stretch this thing out. I was like, no, I'm good. I'm ready to go back. And he said, all right, cool, awesome. I'll let her over and stuff. And so we got cleared and all that. And I went back to work about 2.5 weeks after. Um, uh, I put in for a troop change, went to a different troop after that, and so I got put on Brad Wiley's troop. So he had been an FTO, but then he had after that got promoted to sergeant, so I got moved to his troop. Um, and I did a couple of days on day shift, and then they rotated back to nights. So it was my first shift back on night shift on my new troop after the shooting. It was about 6 weeks after the shooting,
Mhm.
and I drive into the PD at 5:45 p.m. and I see all the cop cars are gone, like the main frontline units, because we share. I'm like, that's weird. So I turn on my radio and I hear that it's chaos. Radio's chaos. We had a shooting homicide just outside the city on literally 50 yards from the edge of the city
Wow.
that we had units responding to. And simultaneously with that, we had a stabbing in a set of our apartment complexes where the guy had barricaded himself, had stabbed the dude, and then barricaded himself in an apartment. So the patrol was split between those two. And as my troop was coming into work, we were just hopping in extra units
Mhm.
and hauling to whichever one. So I ran inside, grabbed the keys to an extra unit, and then hauled to the apartment complex. And long story short, dude and his dad had gotten into a fight over pills, and the son, adult son, had stabbed his dad in the arm towards the elbow and ran the knife blade all the way through, and then ran it down to his wrist.
Ooh.
So this dude is leaking, and it looked like a freaking horror movie, man. Like there was blood.
Man.
The guy was the way the 911 call came in is he was running around trying to find somebody to call 911, and just it looked like you were taking a gallon of milk, which was blood, and just pouring it.
Yeah.
And the trail of where all he ran, it's a miracle that dude lived. Like he ended up not dying from blood loss,
Wow.
but if you'd have showed me the trail and everything, I'd have been like, oh, he's dead. But he was able to live through it. But anyway, but the dude had then locked himself in his apartment, and there was some exigency to where we knew for sure he was in there. So we had our probable cause to go in and arrest
Mhm.
him for this. There was a witness that had seen stuff that happened, whatever it was. Well, um, due to the kind of the hastiness of everything, kind of the chaos, we could call the SWAT team, but we had like six of us there, and
Mhm.
so the sergeant was like, "Hey, we got six SWAT dudes, and then landlord just brought me the key.
Yep.
Roger that." So we go in there, clear through. Normally I would have taken an AR,
Mhm.
but the unit I had grabbed didn't have an AR in it. It was one of the extra units, so it's the only time in my whole career I've grabbed a 12 gauge shotgun, and talking about ballistics, 12 gauge shotgun inside of an apartment against a knife. I'll take that's okay.
Hey.
I'm down with that. So I clear through. We're cleared as we go in. Up in the back bedroom, there's a closet, and I step around the corner, and there's the dude. He's covered in blood, got a knife in his hand, and he's standing in the closet. And I've got 12 gauge on him, and I drop it. And his eyes are looking me in my eyes, and they go to that shotgun barrel back to me, and he goes, puts his hands up. So spin him around, get him in cuffs, walk him outside, go all the way up to my unit, kind of through the apartment complex area, search him real good and all that stuff, do all your normal cop stuff, put him in my unit. And as soon as I shut the door, just fight or flight, man. My heart rate goes through the roof. I was just, oh, well, I realized, okay, cool. Panic
Mhm.
attack. He's secured. We're good. I just walk around the backside of my unit and I just sit down and started breathing. So I'm chilling there for a little bit, get my breathing under control, get calm back down. I wasn't there for super long. And again, this would have been 6 weeks later, so it's September, so it's still real hot and muggy out in
Mhm.
Arkansas. And when I came around the corner, Sergeant Wiley had got there, but he, I guess, had realized that I had the suspect at my car, or whatever, whatever it transpired. He was coming to check on me. So I come walking around the unit, and he's looking at me. He's like, "You good?" And I said, "Yeah." In my head, I'm thinking, I definitely wasn't just freaking out behind the car. Like, I'm fine, and I wasn't freaking out. I was just getting everything calmed back down because I knew what was going on. And he goes, "You sure?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?" And he goes, "You're sweating like a motherfucker." And I was like, and I looked down, and at the time we still wore, we wore like gray shirts with inner vest, and I had a ring of sweat through my vest around that gray shirt. So through that,
Wow.
all the heart rate and all the stuff, the
Yeah.
sweat, and of course dealing with the scene. I mean, it was hot,
Mhm.
but between all that, I had sweated through, and that's all I looked down. I was like, "I'm good." And he's like, "All right, cool." And I told him later on, that I'd had that, but we had talked about it already from that first one,
Mhm.
so he was, we were cool, and that was it. That was the last, I guess, symptom I had.
Mhm.
Um, After that, and I can't say it enough, man. Having that knowledge beforehand,
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't feel crazy at all because the
Mhm.
book said this was normal. So everything as it happened, it was like, okay, well, this is normal. I'm good.
Mhm.
Um, Grouping for the shooting, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, just as dead center can be, with a 40 cal Glock
Mhm.
22. So that confirmed that my training was headed the right direction. My one miss was before my hand made it back.
Mhm.
I hate that with everything that's in me. I hate it. Um, but it is what it is. And then my
Mhm.
second round after that initial volley, was what ended up putting him down. And he was done and just didn't know it at the
Mhm.
time. But I hate that one round missed, but it is what it is.
Mhm.
It didn't hit it. It lodged in a wall, a couple of walls in, so it's not like it went out and hit anybody. But I walked away from it both. Okay, what I'm doing is working,
Mhm.
but that miss bothered me. So
Mhm.
all right, I got more work to do, and um, that was what started. I had already, so when I first got hired at PD, we weren't allowed to have weapon lights on our pistols
Mhm.
at all because, quote unquote, if I let you have flashlights on your guns, you'll be using it, hold the
Yeah.
flashlight for EMS, just
Yeah.
dumb stuff that administrators who are so far removed from the real job itself
Mhm.
think sounds smart when they say it out loud, but it's just not the case. And so
Mhm.
when the new chief had rolled in, I had got weapon lights approved, and then I'd even got to where we could change our sights on our factory Glock.
Mhm.
So I was running at the time Trigicon HD XRs, I believe.
Mhm.
So they were still 3-dot tritium, but they had the narrow front sight that
Mhm.
was high vis, and then the blacked out rear with a U notch. Um, and it kind of got made fun of at first.
Mhm.
The guy, oh, you need them sights for? Well, after that, hey, what sights you have on that gun? And all of a sudden you got all the armors are all busy because they're having to swap sights for everybody. What was after that I started the push for 9 millimeters and red dots. And
Mhm.
so, because at the end of the day, if you're going to use a pistol, pistols are pistols, and
Mhm.
they will never not be a pistol. So, what I wanted was as many rounds as I could hold in a magazine that I could shoot as fast as possible, as accurately as possible.
Mhm.
And red dots were kind of coming on the scene pretty prevalently at that point, not in law enforcement, but in the competitive shooting side.
Mhm.
And I wanted that on my, if that's great for competitive shooting, why wouldn't I want that on my duty weapon, and Trigicon had already had the RMR. Like,
Mhm.
there was already very reputable red dots to be going on guns.
Mhm.
And to me it was easy. Like, we have red dots on our rifles, why can't I have it on my pistol? And so I ended up doing a presentation for Chief, um, justifying it and asking, if he was a big, don't bring me a problem, bring me a solution. So
Yeah.
if you're like, hey chief, and then just griped about something, you can expect you weren't getting anywhere. But you come to him and say, hey, here's a problem, and then here's what I have to fix it. My pitch was just getting permission to carry my own gun. Like, I
Mhm.
just wanted the ability to go buy a 9 millimeter and carry it. And I was going to get a Glock 17, throw a red dot on it, and whatever. Well, we were about due to buy new pistols because we'd had them for, I don't remember how many years, but several years, and it was about that time anyway. And so what he ended up doing was, the department bought G45s for the department, so 9 millimeter Glocks.
Mhm.
They were going to do MOSs, but then they ended up not, due to budget stuff or whatever. But they approved any officer could purchase their own,
Their own.
yeah, Glock 45 MOS or 17 MOS and carry it on duty. And so that all got rolled out in, I believe it was mid to late 2009, or not 2009, 2019.
Mhm.
And so I've been carrying a red dot on my pistol since then. Now is 5 years after that, we got new pistols again. Now the department issues an
Mhm.
MOS Glock. So guys, they don't get issued the red dot, but we get a uniform allowance, so they can go, anybody can go get one. So I would say For sure, over 50% of our department now has red dots
There we go.
on their guns, and that's a big deal. I'm all for it, man. Like it's a big force multiplier. So
Yeah.
it's not gonna make a red dot on a rifle. You can make a bad shooter good.
Mm.
Red dot on a pistol is not gonna make a bad shooter good, but it'll make a good shooter great pretty
Mhm.
quickly. And I think for cops, that ability to threat focus is a big deal. And
Mhm.
so I was a big proponent of that. And so then we were able to get that done for the whole department. And then I was able to buy that. So I had that Glock 22 first, and then I've been carrying a Glock 17 MOS Gen 5 since. So it's been
Nice.
awesome. So,
It sounds like you guys had rifles for a while too.
but yeah, so after the courthouse shooting,
Yeah.
prior to the courthouse shooting, I believe I wasn't there at the
That was in
time.
11? 2011?
2011, I think there were 4 rifles for all of patrol that it was kind of first come, first served. You
Mhm.
grab it, throw it in your unit. After the courthouse shooting, it's crazy. When something bad happens, all of a sudden we have money.
Mhm.
And They went and bought rifles, EOTechs, like tricked them out and had them in almost every patrol car.
Wow.
And
That's awesome.
um, so by the time I got to the PD, I was great for that. I had a rifle in my patrol car in a lock right here that you can hit the button, and then I had
Mhm.
access to that rifle. Um, uh, and then the open mindedness of that new chief. It was after he came on that we ended up going to outer vests too, which was a big
Oh
deal.
yeah, that's a
When I got
really
hired, it
very
was it was still leather belt,
Mhm.
class A type uniform. Now we had like tactical blue pants, but gray shirts. We looked like mall cops. Like I hated
Mhm.
our old uniform. Some of the guys that have been there for a long time, Van Buren cops wear gray, and that's fine, man. I'm happy for them. I hated it the whole time. I was like, we look like
Yeah.
cops, man. I hate this. So now we wear a all blue uniform and then have the blue outer carriers, and you can put
Yeah.
your stuff, get it off your belt and up on your
Oh
chest.
yeah, those are
So
great for weight
incredible,
bearing. Like the
incredible, man.
problems that
Yep,
everybody I know have ever. I mean, that's where I think most of my back problems are
yep.
come from
No, it's
too.
incredible, and um, so yeah, a lot of changes with that new chief, man, that were just incredible for the
That's awesome.
department. So, but
Now, when you're referring to troop, is that a shift or a division?
shift. So
Okay,
yeah,
so
so
that's a shift that you.
so working in Panama, you work 7 out of 14 days,
Mhm.
and we work 12-hour shifts. So there's 2 troops that work this set of days, but
Okay.
an opposite 7, there's 2 troops. We had
Okay.
4 troops total.
Okay.
So, um, so yeah, there's 4 at the time. There was 4 troops, 4 sergeants, 1 for each troop,
Mhm.
and then a lieutenant over patrol. Since then, we added a rank to our rank structure. Um, and so now there's a lieutenant and a sergeant on every single troop and
Okay.
a captain over patrol. But if the sergeant was off duty previously, then there was a designated, usually a senior corporal, who would then
Mhm.
be the supervisor on duty. Now there has to be a sergeant or a lieutenant on duty.
Yeah.
And if they need to trade or whatever, that's cool. But like, there is a designated supervisor who's been through the supervisor school for Arkansas,
Mhm.
Amish supervisor, whatever. And so that just gave them the ability to have a little bit more oversight and stuff. And it kind of works out because the lieutenant kind of handles the paperwork side of stuff as far as
Mhm.
supervisor, and the sergeant's able to kind of get out there and kind of be a little bit more hands on, and it's not split duties. Um, I don't know. Some people probably thought that was a bad thing.
Yeah.
I don't have any issues with it. I thought it was good.
Yeah.
But
So then, how long was it before your second shooting?
so the second shooting happened in July of 2020. So
Okay.
almost 2 years
2 years later.
Yep.
Do you want to get into that one, or do you want to talk about?
Yeah, let's get into that
Okay.
because it's in the chain of events. So
Okay.
um, that one was almost 2 years later. So I had just hit 4 years as an
Mhm.
officer. And that one was a SWAT call out. So I've been on the team at that point for 3 years,
Mhm.
3 of my 4 years. And I was working, I had an off duty job at that gun store I was talking about
Mhm.
earlier. And so I was there working on my day off, phone rings, SWAT call out. And so, middle of the day, um, uh, the way our dispatch worked at the time is there was a certain number that then was just like an automated call
Mhm.
I had to say to my phone is SWAT call out. So you hit it, answer it so that it confirms that you picked up, but then you radio as soon as you can get within range that you're en route. Hey, guys, I got to go. Got a SWAT call out in Van Buren. They're like, all right, see you. I head out the door, and I was able to call our team leader, asked him what we had, and he said we had a barricade at one of our hotels. It's a really small hotel in the city. He said the guy pointed a gun at the clerk, and then he's locked himself in his room and won't come out. Cool, roger that. So at the time, I didn't have a take home unit or anything, so uh, I had to go to my house, which I lived in the city, and so went to my house and got my uniform, my SWAT uniform. I think my gun belt was there. There was something important that I needed there. And then two, I was wearing Chacos, working at the gun store because there wasn't really a dress code there, you know. And so I was in a hurry. So like I started to go out the door with my Chacos on, and I was like, man, if we end up gassing this thing, you know, CS gas, I'm OC, anything chemical agents
Yeah.
that's designed to hurt humans hurts me bad. So I was like, man, I don't want burning feet. So so I threw on some boots, you know, whatever, head out the door. So I get to the scene, and uh, the guy had suspect had another another old guy. He was in the 70s. But he had rented a room there, and the clerk had gone to tell him that it was time for him to check out, like because he had rented the room the previous day. And so clerk knocks on the door, and the guy opens it, and he's basically telling him, "Hey, you either got to pay for another night or you got to go. Like it's time to leave." And the guy stuck a 44 Magnum in his face, and so the dude ran, called the cops, guy just shut the door and locked it. So, um, patrol had got there initially for the call and kind of set up a perimeter really close. It's a one level like motel, you know, just one level, basically a row of rooms with the office and then another row of rooms and an L here, and then big kind of sloped parking lot that goes down to one of our main roads right there by the interstate. And um, the weird thing about it, and uh, one negotiators got on scene. They were calling the phone in his room. It's a big window. They're on the PA system. Hey, police, come out. You know, show us your hands. You know, all this stuff for a couple hours prior to me getting there, because it was probably 45 minutes before I got there from the time the call out happened. The call out didn't happen until they had like it wasn't just an immediate call. You know, so I'm not sure how long they were on scene. I know it was hours trying to get in touch with this dude, and wasn't into the phone in the room. Um, I don't remember if they'd found a cell phone number or not, but they were on the PA system. They were doing everything they could to contact this dude, and nothing, wasn't having any of it. The other weird thing was that 44 Magnum. It was a Smith and Wesson 6-inch double action revolver. It was sitting on the windowsill of the hotel room. So you got that big window, and then curtain is drawn so you can't see in the room, but that 44 Magnum is sitting right there in between the curtain and the window. So initially, like SWAT team gets there, and we're like, just break and wreck that window and snatch that gun. Now he could have had another gun, but if we can take that's exactly what was described by the clerk. You know that they had been putting together all the information by the time I got there, so we're kind of hot washing ideas or whatever. Well, um, those windows are like a polycarbonate, like a plastic. They don't shatter very well. So we tested on another window. Patrol had already evacuated all the rooms, so we had a completely empty building that we were dealing with. So that was a benefit. But patrol had, or not patrol. So we tested on one of the other windows if we could break it, and because it was that plastic, we just by hitting it with like our pointed Halligan tool, like the sledgehammer, like all the different things, it wouldn't break. It was plastic, so it was like a storm window, I guess, industrial type window. So that was off the table. We didn't have explosive breaching or anything at the time. Um, I don't, and I'm not even saying right now that that would be an option. I'm just saying we tried, and breaking the window wasn't an option. So then it was okay. Well, gas. We could just start gassing the room. He's already hasn't negotiated for hours. He's still in the room. We know that, or believe that at least to the best of our ability. I'm not for sure if it had been 100% confirmed or not, but because I think we ended up, I don't remember if we got a search warrant or not. Anyway, by the time I got there, we were trying to decide how to solve this problem. And so we gassed it, but then the question was, one, if he had any other guns, or two, if he snatched that up and just started shooting through the window. It's a 44 Magnum. It's for keeps. We got traffic on this main road about 100 yards away from the window, but we had a whole lot of things in play. We really didn't want that gun in play. And so the decision was made that if we introduced gas, there was potential for him to just start shooting through that window, and we didn't want that. And so team leader and the commander and kind of the senior guys on the team and all of us were right there, and we agreed on a plan. Team leader kind of came up with it. It was Randy Allen. Again, dude I trust him in 5. He said, "Hey, we got a search warrant for the gates of hell, man. Like, cool, let's go. Like, I'd follow that guy anywhere." Um, hindsight being 2020, it was kind of crazy plan, but it is what it is. So the plan we came up with, again, the whole goal was to get this gun out of play. Um, and we didn't believe that introducing gas at the time would have worked. Or it might have worked, but it might have increased the risk that he would get
Mhm.
that gun and then just start randomly shooting, which is what we didn't want. Um, so the plan was made to we had a key to the room, and so we were going to use the breacher to quietly get that door open, and then we were going to send two dudes in as fast as they could. I was point, and my job was to get my hands on that dude as fast as I can. We knew he was a 75-year-old man. We already had him ID'd. Through that back leg work that they had done, we'd
Mhm.
figured out we had taken a call with him. We knew it was a 75-year-old man that was off his rocker, like not
Mhm.
having some kind of mental thing, right? Not a very serious bad guy. Obviously a dangerous guy. Obviously,
Mhm.
trying to be safe about it. But I think that probably played into our stuff too. Is he wasn't a bad guy. We were
Mhm.
trying to help him and get him to where he couldn't hurt anyone. So anyway, the plan was we're going to breach the door quietly using the key to defeat the locking mechanism. And then I was going to go in and get my hands on him as fast as I could. The number two guy was going to go straight to that gun and secure it. We then opened that row of doors over on this side. We actually opened all those to look at the room layouts,
Mhm.
and they
Mhm.
were all the exact same. And we asked, "Hey man, are these rooms all the same?" He's like, "Yep, all the same." All those were the same. And then he said they were saying that room was completely different. So on these other ones, the bed was, if you came in the door, bed was here. And then there was a seat by the window. And then
Mhm.
the window in this room, the bed ended up being right beside the window. So we repped unlocking the door. Our breacher repped you using the key, defeating the lock, open the door. We repped it a few times. We had all the time in the world. No, none of the stuff. Cool. All right, we good? Everybody good? Yep, let's go. Well, at that point, with my 100% goal being to get my hands on him, I elected to leave my rifle back with everyone else, and so I had a pistol in my hand because my job is to cover the breacher, um, and then but I was going to be moving, holstering, and trying to get my
Mhm.
hands on and get a hold of this dude, and so moved forward, stacked on the door. Not we came up down the if you're facing the wall, came up and then the door's here. And so breacher's here. I'm right behind the breacher and the rest of the team is back this direction. And then the window is right here. So if I'm looking at the breacher, there's the door, team is this way,
Mhm.
and then window is right here. So I'm covering the window while he's dealing with the door. And I have my pistol, my Glock 17. Um, Anyway, he defeats the locking mechanism and goes to force that door open, and the chain was still locked, and he didn't quite push it hard enough on that first one, so it goes boom, and he recoils and then hits it again, and at that point the door boom. But in that boom, recoil, and then hard shove to
Mhm.
to get the door open, the curtain pulls, and I see two hands come grab the 44 Magnum and then just bringing it up at the team. And so I'm standing here looking at this, and the 44 Magnum gets scooped up and it's being pointed at us.
Mhm.
So I'm standing here like kind of bladed facing the door, but facing the window. So I see that, and so I just turn blast. So I fired. Um, it was either 6 or 7 rounds initially, just bang, 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 basically a
Mhm.
bill drill. And the guy fell back into the room with the gun. So I shot him through the window. Well, then at that point, Breacher had, because of the shots, he had dropped to one knee and he was dealing with lock stuff. So he didn't have a gun in his hand. He had his
Mhm.
rifle slung. And so I was able to process, okay, he's fallen in, but I can't see him now because the curtain fell back. I know we need to retreat and I need to cover the breacher because he didn't have a gun. He didn't have a weapon to fight. And
Mhm.
so I let go with my left hand, grabbed him by his vest, pulled him back, and then stepped between masking with my plates and still covering the window. What I thought in real time was I need to throw flashbang something to distract
Mhm.
us while we leave, but my hands are full. So I liked it too. I knew my backdrop was clear because we had cleared out everybody inside there was nobody else in the rooms. And so he had fallen back. Last I saw him, he had that gun in his hand as he
Mhm.
was falling backwards. I then placed 4 more rounds with one hand as we were backing up. So bang, 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 hopefully to keep his head down while we were
Mhm.
retreating. Because we were right there out open versus a 44 Magnum, which is
Mhm.
just 100% for keeps no matter where you get hit with it. So, was able to make it back to our position of cover. Um, I did a tac mag change because I knew I'd fired just over half a mag. And then the first thing I remember saying once I got back to a position of cover and I didn't have like wasn't actively covering something is I yelled, "Where the fuck is my rifle?" And one of our uh, patrolman, I don't know if he was a canine officer at the time, but anyway, he was close and he goes, "I'll grab it." And so he runs over to the vehicle where it was and he comes running towards me holding my rifle and I holster, "Thanks, brother." Like, and then we're holding on this room again. So at that point, the door's open. Dude hasn't negotiated the whole time. We just had that
Mhm.
shooting. He didn't fire a round off or anything. And we were able to establish contact with him, yelling.
Mhm.
Our negotiator was fired back up again. You know, hey, show us your hands, comply with us, give us something to show that you're wanting to surrender. And so he had crawled to the door and was indicating with his hands out. We also had our two snipers at that point deployed to
Mhm.
where they could have good cover on that window and that door. Um, I say deployed; they were 70 yards away or whatever.
Mhm.
We talked. Me and Chris talked about that earlier. For a quarter inch gun for
Yeah.
600 yards, so you can make a 20-yard shot or whatever. Totally get it. I'm right there. I get it. But anyway, yeah, he wanted to negotiate at that point. He was bleeding, hurt, and he's like, "Yep, this isn't fun anymore, and I don't want to do this." So he was able to get his hands to the door where we could see, and so TL called for me and Wes Marsh to move up and take him into custody. So we both entered the room, covering down on him. He's bleeding pretty profusely from it looked like his whole torso area.
Mhm.
But I immediately stepped over him and went to where I saw the gun was laying on the ground. So
Mhm.
I enter the room looking at him. I cut my eyes over and I see the gun laying on the ground. So I get between him and the gun and then just post up. And then Wes takes position on the opposite side. So we had him kind of in an L. We're covering down on him. And then the door's right here. So we've got him covered. And then we call, "Hey, go ahead, send our team medic up."
Mhm.
Rewind a little bit. Um, when I first got on the SWAT team, we didn't have medics.
Mhm.
After my first shooting, Dave Moore running
Mhm.
and then seeing basically how real all that was,
Mhm.
it kind of flipped a switch in him, and he's like, "Man, I want to I want to do something for these guys because they don't
Mhm.
have any any medical options, especially on the SWAT team." Because at
Mhm.
that point, he had kind of built some relationships, not just with me, but some other guys on the team. And he's like, "Man, we need a medic program for the SWAT team." And so him and some of the guys on the team went to the administrators for the department. And of course, when you pitch, "Hey, we want to make firemen cops and give them guns, and they're going to be medics," the answer was no. So that was what started our war of attrition. And so we were like, listen, they won't be cops, they won't have guns, but they'll be there in case we need good guys
Mhm.
patched.
Yeah.
Right? This is important. They're like, "Okay, we can work with that." So we started there. Well, this was it was either his first call out. I think it was might have been his second call out ever since he was on the team.
Mhm.
No gun, no badge, just medic on the SWAT team. He hears the shots fired because he wasn't on entry or anything like that. Obviously, he didn't have a gun
Mhm.
or anything. He took off sprinting because when he saw the breacher go down, he thought the officer had gone down. And by the time he sees us pulling back, he's, I mean, 20 feet away because he didn't care, didn't
Mhm.
matter, uncommon. Well, we call for him to come up and treat bad guy. So he gets up there and is assessing EMS. We had staged because we'd been on this barricade for several hours. So EMS comes up to start working on bad guy, and he didn't have any entrance wounds in his chest, but he had one, two, three, four, five, and I think six. He was a big, heavy set guy, and then the
Mhm.
sixth one kind of went in right here, and it looked like he'd stuck a knife blade in his back fat, like maybe an inch in, and just
Mhm.
gone zip right across his back. So just shot in his arms.
Mhm.
Nothing to his chest. I think he had one in his shoulder, maybe somewhere, but anyway, I had 6 hits on target. And um, so they're patching holes, and EMS guys were okay. Some of our EMS guys are paramedics, some of them are just EMTs, and just like anywhere,
Mhm.
any place you can work at on planet Earth with humans, it's a mixed bag. Sometimes you got really good ones, sometimes you get really bad
Mhm.
ones. Well, Dave was having to walk them through. Like he's like, "No, give me this. Let me patch plug this hole and try to get them through getting that dude loaded up." And so, um, the guy was crazy. I said before, he just hopped his
Mhm.
rocker. So during that exchange, while Dave's kind of working on him, EMS is coming in. He ended up rolling him over, and so, dude, I'm still covering with my rifle, kind of, and he makes eye contact with me, right? So we had just made eye contact earlier
Mhm.
when he pointed a 44 Magnum at me and my team, and I shot him. And he looks me in my face and he goes, "Hey, man, thank you." And I was like, "That's weird." So I just said, "Anytime, pal." And it was at that point, a little like a few seconds later, Wes goes, "Are you good?" And I like look up at him, he's like, "You good?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm good." So it's like, okay, like that was weird. I didn't realize I'd said that in the moment. I was just answering him. And then
Mhm.
afterwards, Wes was like, "Hey, the reason I checked on you is because you looked at that dude that you had just shot in the eye and said, 'Hey, anytime, pal.'" Like, that's weird, man. Like, I just responded. I didn't even remember I said it. But yeah, he was crazy. He was thinking I think his statement to state police after, because he lived through it. I mean, he had the
Yeah.
through and through gunshot wounds to his arms and stuff, but he ended up living through it. Um, he didn't get a ton of the 44 Magnum, come to find out, was unloaded, so
Oh.
it didn't have any ammo in it.
Mhm.
Didn't obviously had no way of knowing that at the time, but uh, they ended up doing some mental health stuff for him and make it to where he can't legally go buy a firearm and stuff.
Mhm.
I think he's on probation and everything like that. But again, he wasn't a bad dude. He was just crazy. But he was talking crazy thing. He told state police he was so glad to see us because that was crazy. And it's like, I don't know if he thought aliens had shot him. I don't know
Yeah.
what he thought was going on, but just bizarre. He was thanking everybody for their service on the way out through. And um, uh, whenever the medic was working on him, he the gun that was closest towards me, or the hand that was closest towards me, and i.e. the firearm, he goes and puts his knee on it to then address the other hand. And the guy he goes, "Ow, ow, excuse me, sir." And Dave goes, "What?" And he goes, Can you get off my hand? That hurts." And Dave goes, no, bro, you just tried to shoot my friends. Like, I'm not gonna get off your hand right now." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And that was it. Because they're continuing to patch him up, and he wasn't doing it to be mean. He was just trying to control that hand while he was addressing, and we didn't, all this stuff. But um, anyway, yeah. So that one, completely different on the physiological
Mhm.
side. Audio disclusion. I heard my shots, but my ears didn't ring.
Mhm.
But time didn't really slow down. I processed a lot, but I don't. Even the way I remember it is, I don't remember it
Mhm.
slow. I did process. I needed to grab him, pull him back, and then there was a lot going on, but nothing ever felt like it slowed down. And then no residual heart rate stuff
Mhm.
afterwards. To the opposite, I had done a lot in Grossman's book. It talks about your like different zones, your zone, I think yellow, white,
Oh,
yellow,
yeah.
red, black, and
Yeah.
how you want to avoid being in black, because that's where you lose. In the academy, bless their hearts, they shove down your throat that you're going to lose fine motor skills and you
Mhm.
need to wreck your slide like this because you're not going to be able to hit a slide release because that's a fine motor skill. When this is a fine motor skill,
Mhm.
like I never understood that and realized they were teaching the lowest common denominator. If you train, that's completely different. So, um, uh, I was doing a lot of high heart rate stuff, and at the time I was wearing a Garmin
Mhm.
watch, so I have my heart rate chart for that day, and my heart rate peaked. You have my normal active heart rate of like 90, and then you can tell when the SWAT call out happens because it goes 120, and then cruising around 120. Right, I'm switched on. Everything's cool, and then game time it kicks up just a little bit more, probably as we're about to do, and then it leveled off. The highest it got was 170 for the shooting aspect, and immediately
Mhm.
dropped back off, and then was cruising that 120, 140, and then as the day went on, just right back
Mhm.
down normal. And so at that point, I was 2 years past the other one. I
Mhm.
had that experience,
Mhm.
which I think is important, and I think
Mhm.
that helps as far as um, being more prepared.
Mhm.
What also sets it apart is I ultimately had at least 2, if not 3 hours, to
Mhm.
prepare my mind, body, and spirit. As and Cal Morgan's the one I heard say it that way, and I was like,
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
prepare my mind, body, and spirit for violence. Like, I
Mhm.
was calling ahead, figuring out what we had, and then just running through scenarios,
Mhm.
processing. Okay, we're gonna need this. What if this happens? The other one went from 0 to 100 in 1 minute and 17 seconds.
Mhm.
This one I had hours to prepare myself, and so that was
Yeah.
it. I had nothing afterwards.
One of the interesting things I've learned through doing these, almost everybody that I've talked to who have been in, and some have been in up to 5 shootings.
Yeah,
The first shooting, they have had different physical, none of the others, they've had nothing.
yeah,
So,
yeah. It was all. Yeah, I was ready for it because then not
mhm.
only did I have the knowledge, I had the experience, but then I slept like a baby that night. um, was good. And same thing, no guilt. I'll say this: the one thing that bothered me, and it of the two, it was the only strictly emotional thing that I really struggled with.
Mhm.
I felt guilty for I shot center mass of the target presented to me, right?
Mhm.
The curtain pulled, gun comes up, curtain falls back. All I can see are his arms.
Mhm.
His body is right behind that curtain,
Mhm.
and I shot his arms.
Yeah.
Was that inherently wrong at the time? No. And it was what I'd been training for. Center mass the target presented. If I can see a piece of an elbow sticking out, I'm putting one in the center of that piece of elbow, right?
Mhm.
Um, what bothered me was I had tried to stop that threat using lethal force. We don't use lethal force unless we're trying to.
Mhm.
They're
Mhm.
trying to hurt or kill us. We're trying to stop the threat, right? Um, I had to sort out some guilt from that of not shooting the curtain where his body
Mhm.
was. Um, and it all worked out. It was fine. We were all fine. He couldn't use his hands at that point.
Mhm.
I mean, the threat was fully neutralized, but what I recognized was a deficiency in my training in that I need to be able to process that while that might be a target that I can shoot.
Mhm.
I had never worked on the cognitive processing portion of engaging the better place
Mhm.
and thinking
Mhm.
in real time. And that was a call afterwards I made to Rusty and said, "Hey man, here's what happened. Here's all the stuff. This can never happen again." He said, "Roger that." And so we started working cognitive shooting drills
Mhm.
on different sequences with a whole lot more decision making inside of that, just repping it over and over and over again. So now what I know is if that same situation happens again, I'll be able to stop the threat
Mhm.
in the most likely way to stop it. It wasn't about killing him or not killing him. It was about having the highest likelihood of success of
Mhm.
stopping the threat and
Negating it,
protecting my
right.
team and protecting me.
Mhm.
And so um, I had to come to terms with that, I guess is the best way to say it.
Mhm.
Like I wasn't laying awake crying at night or anything like that,
Yeah.
but it was something I had to process.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, that two things can be true at once.
Mhm.
It is what it is, but if there is a better place to shoot than what is most obvious, I know I'll be able to make that
Mhm.
shot next time. So yeah, that was the big takeaway from that one. Same thing about 2.5, 3 weeks off.
Mhm.
State police handled the investigation, super professional guys. Um, uh, at first, the whole team was off for like 2 days, and then
Mhm.
they got them all back to work pretty quick. And then I was off for another 2 weeks, and then went back to work and still working patrol at the time. And it was early the following years whenever I made my move to CID and start working
Okay.
narcotics. So yeah,
We brought up something earlier talking about your family
yeah,
and your wife. What was that? That.
yeah. So later that year, th- later that year,
Of the
there
second
was
shooting?
yeah, yeah, 2020. So I've been
Mhm.
a cop for 4-ish years at that point, just over 4 years. Um, things had shifted as far as when I say I was putting my job 100% over my family, I was.
Mhm.
Every extra duty I could work, I was working it. Now I could justify it in my head, we need the money, whatever the case was. But
Mhm.
ultimately, in every aspect, I was putting my job over my family. Maybe not my daughters as much, but
Mhm.
I for sure wasn't prioritizing my wife. And
Mhm.
um, the end of 2020, basically, figured out some stuff was going on at the house, and what I ultimately discovered was there was some infidelity occurring,
Mhm.
on the part of my wife, and um, that kind of sent me into a spiral pretty
Mhm.
hard, and um, and I couldn't believe it. I didn't know. I was pretty lost there for a little bit. Didn't know what
Mhm.
to do. At that point, we'd been married for 7 years. And had 2 kids and all the stuff. Um, and I on top of there were several aspects that played into what happened after that, but um, there were some physical relationships that occurred
Yeah.
outside of our marriage with her. I hadn't been a perfect husband either, and I would never portray that.
Mhm.
I hadn't you know had a physical relationship with anyone else, but the you got young cop stuff and
Mhm.
you know chicks chasing, whatever they're chasing, and just kind of succumb to that. A lot of alcohol, a lot of
Mhm.
partying,
Mhm.
just not ultimately not leading my family, not putting my wife over everything else, and not being a good husband, And so there was fault on both ends, for sure. But it sent me into a pretty dark place, and so I started. There was about a 3-day period that December, where uh, I ended up, talking to our chaplain at the PD because I wasn't going to church or anything. I'd
Mhm.
grown up in church, but I'd kind of got away from that, and I had was just looking for help. Like I didn't know what to do,
Mhm.
and I was face to face with the reality of I I wanted to fix my marriage, but I didn't believe it could be fixed, basically.
Mhm.
But I knew for my daughter's sake, I wanted to try. I was basically real confused. It was a
Mhm.
dark 3 or 4 days. Where that ultimately led me was, so I talked about Dave Moore earlier, and that dude. So he'd been on the SWAT team at that point. We'd got him after that call out where he was shooting. He got to go to reserve school,
Mhm.
and then it was a quick jump after that, sent him to SWAT school, and now he's a stack medic. I mean, he's a six man, when we're going in the house. And if you hang around Dave very long, he's real high strung, real high performing dude. But right out of the gate where he stands with his family.
Mhm.
He puts them first, and that dude loves Jesus, man.
Mhm.
And I'm not 100% sure why I called him. Um, I believe now, I mean, it was ultimately the Lord is what led me to call him. But man, I ended up calling him and like, hey man, I need to talk to you. And he's like, bro, I'll come to where you're at right now. Where are you at? Like, just he's gonna drop everything. And I was like, no, no, hang on. Like, let's talk in the morning. Like, let's go get breakfast or whatever. He's like, cool. And we met in the Waffle House parking lot in Van Buren, and um, he I got in the truck, and I was we didn't even go inside. I just started bawling and
Mhm.
telling him everything that was going on, and I was like, I don't get, man, I was a good husband. I'm this, I'm that. I'm just telling him what's up, and I'm just pouring myself out. And he's quiet. He's listening. He teared up, choked up. I mean, he was tore up for me. He's a
Mhm.
bro, and I get it all out, and I'll never forget this as long as I live, man. He looks at me and he goes, "Are you done?" And I was like, "Well, that's weird." Yeah. And he said, "All right." He said, "Well, I got some shit to say, and you're not gonna like it, so you better buckle up." He reached into his back seat and he grabbed his Bible, and then what I can only describe as assaulted me with the gospel, man. Like,
Mhm.
he took me to scripture and showed me what scripture says a good husband is. And
Mhm.
so I saw how I'd fallen short of that. He showed me what scripture said a good man was, and I would have said I was a good dude before, but I'd fallen short of that. And what I came face to face with was my need for a savior, and how glaringly horribly I had messed up my family life, man. I hadn't put my wife over anything.
Mhm.
She'd been with me through, at that point, 2 shootings. She had walked hand in hand with me into that law enforcement career. Um, she had she had given birth to my 2 children. Man, that girl is the greatest treasure that the Lord's ever given me. And I was too stupid and arrogant and naive to see that. And and what I realized in that moment was what I was trying to decide was what I was going to do as the hurt,
Mhm.
spouse. And what I needed to do was go home and beg my wife to forgive me for the husband I'd been. And afterwards, I mean, all I could tell people after that moment was I met God in a Waffle House parking lot, man, and everything
Mhm.
changed. And I drove straight home, man. I did exactly that. I woke with Megan up, and I got down I literally on my knees and said, I have blown this so bad. I'm asking you for a chance to be the husband that God's called me to be, and I wanna rebuild. I wanna fix this. And step one to that is I'm asking you to forgive me because this is all on me. Ultimately, this is my fault as the husband, as the father, as the leader of my home. Everything that occurs inside of me and mine, man, that's on me. That's squarely on my shoulders. And she she was dumbfounded. She
Mhm.
had never heard me apologize for anything at all. Um, for sure hadn't heard me talk about God, and for
Mhm.
sure hadn't. I mean, I was all super new to her, and she couldn't believe it. And man, from that moment, that was whenever I met the Lord. She ended up meeting the Lord about 2 weeks later, of watching me be completely different. And it wasn't me. It wasn't me now being a good guy. It wasn't
Mhm.
me. Um, it wasn't me. I'm gonna try hard and I'm gonna read my Bible more. It wasn't that. I'm talking. I got in that truck something, and I got
Mhm.
out of that truck a new creation. Man, it was totally different. And 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 man, the Lord's been good to us since then. And
That's great.
uh, it was rough. It was hard. It was horrible.
Mhm.
It was the darkest period of my life. It, it was so hard, and there was betrayal, and that yeah, I met God. Nothing got easier after that. It
Mhm.
all got harder.
Mhm.
Um, if somebody said, "Hey, what's the secret to a good marriage?" or what's it take? I'd tell anybody, and have told a bunch of dudes since then. And what I seek is what Scripture says, and Scripture says, "Husbands, love your wife the way Christ loved the church." Brother, Christ died for us while we were His enemy, and that's the call of a husband. And so that's the call, man. You want to be a good husband? Go die for your wife while she's your enemy. That's the call. Um, and since then, man, I got the opportunity. Initially, I was gonna leave law enforcement.
Mhm.
It had this job that I loved, that I'd put over every aspect of my family. It had cost me everything. Like, it wasn't the job's fault; it was my fault. But
Mhm.
I had everything I ever wanted, and it wasn't what I wanted. I wanted my family, man,
Mhm.
and I was gonna walk away. And um, what the Lord showed me was, no, you've been doing this for you this whole time.
Mhm.
Now you're gonna do it for me. Um, and uh, by His grace alone, man, I've been trying to walk that out. And there's some other stuff on the resiliency side and
Mhm.
the mental health side. There's an aspect of what I believe being a man is, where we're called to protect, and
Mhm.
we're called to defend both those who God has given us to protect and defend, and then as law enforcement and military and all this stuff. I mean, you go to Scripture, you got King David. That dude killed thousands of people.
Mhm.
Like, I believe God puts people on earth for things, specific things, and I fundamentally believe that He creates some people for war.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
based on my experience in the prior to what happened, I would have said, man, my training is what got me through that. And it was,
Mhm.
like, it absolutely was. But it's God put in me the desire to go train, and
Mhm.
then He gifted me with I had to work hard in academics.
Mhm.
CQB makes a lot of sense to me.
Mhm.
And shooting fast makes a lot of sense to me. You only got to tell me that stuff one time. You may have to explain this algebra equation to me 10 times. We got to work on that.
Yeah.
But you tell me that this is the best way to press a trigger, brother, I'll press that trigger that way from now on. And and then it was His hand over me the whole time, man. And again, going back to David and Goliath, bro. Everybody thinks that was a lucky shot.
Mhm.
Like, oh yeah, and I thought of it that way. If you just read that story, oh yeah, lucky shot, or God ordained shot. David had been slinging a stone
Mhm.
his whole life. He trained as much as I do,
Mhm.
probably more, because he was out in the field with sheep. He's killing lion and bears.
Lions and yeah.
Dude, you think that guy wasn't training? And we're gonna cheapen that to it being a lucky shot. If I
Mhm.
made a hostage shot tomorrow, a silhouette, half a face behind a half a face, and I punch somebody with my Glock 17, there's not a single person at my department that's gonna go lucky shot,
Lucky shot. Yeah.
because I train
Yeah.
my ass off, dude. And that wasn't a lucky shot for David either. God used it to show His power, and
Mhm.
to bring an entire nation to their knees as He was demonstrating His love for His people, man. But we have a call to, as men of war, to prepare.
Mhm.
And so I believe training is a part of that, and so that translates into my shooting, into my jiu-jitsu and MMA stuff, man. It's part of that is being capable to defend and protect my family.
Mhm.
And then the job, the portion of warfare that I believe God has called me to, which is to go out and fight evil every day, man. Um, People talk about the craziness across the nation and
Mhm.
the all the stuff, man. That's all evil on purpose, dude. It's not.
Mhm.
I used to think it was just chaos and evil and whatever, right? I see design, dude.
Mhm.
Um, there's other stuff there, whether people admit that there is or not,
Mhm.
and I've never had as much peace as I've had looking at it through that lens and knowing, okay, well, I'm actually on the front lines of a spiritual war, not
Mhm.
just a regular war. And bro, I'm the worst representative of Christ ever, man. I've covered in tattoos. Half of my tattoos I had prior to getting saved, so I started marking the other side of my body with other stuff. And
Mhm.
I'm a SWAT guy. Like there's some stuff of being created for war. It makes you kind of a rough dude, you know?
Mhm.
And but um, but the way I'm able to love people now,
Mhm.
and I'm able to love my wife and
Mhm.
love my kids, man, I wouldn't trade what me and Megan have now. I go through everything again to have what we have now.
Mhm.
It's incredible. I didn't know it could be this good. And
That's
it's all because of Jesus, man. And that piece now carrying forward. I'm an assistant team leader on the SWAT team now. Um, Still working narcotics. Hopefully, through that time, I left the PD for a little bit, kind of reset my ability to promote. You have to have consecutive service, but I'll be testing for sergeant.
uh-huh.
Lord willing, next year, and
Yeah.
want to start stepping in those leaders role and be the leader that I had at different times and the ones that I definitely didn't have at different times.
Mhm.
And it's all from that place of just love, man,
Mhm.
loving people, loving a bad guy enough. People get that twisted. I believe, we got to hate the bad guy. We got to hate the guy that's trying to
Mhm.
kill us and our team. And I'm not trying to push this on anybody else, man, but this is how I see it. If I believe that we're all ultimately going to answer for everything that we do
Mhm.
here on earth, is there anything more loving that I could do to that guy, that active shooter at that school, or that dude trying to kill me and my teammates, or trying to kill whoever on a call? If he's going to have to answer for every single thing that he does on planet Earth, is there anything more loving that I could do for him than to stop him from having one more thing to answer for?
Mhm.
You know, um, it's love, man. That's
Mhm.
it. Our SWAT team motto now has been for 4 years is love thy neighbor, because
Mhm.
that covers it. Love each other, love the city, love our citizens, love the bad guys, man. Love them enough to stop them from doing something horrible, whether that's less lethal all the way up to and including, stopping the threatening their life.
Mhm.
Um, and that why, um, that why is a big bright light in a really dark reality of all the stuff we deal with in law enforcement,
Mhm.
man. When it gets heavy, I've got every cop that's been an officer for probably 6 weeks or longer
Mhm.
has at least one traumatic event. And
Mhm.
then as those years go, I don't know how many dead bodies I've seen.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know where it ends. But when it gets dark, man, that having that purpose and that why is that
Mhm.
I'm called to love people the way Christ loved me, and be that for others, and everything that includes. That'll get you through some dark days, man. And I don't I think it's just it's lucky on my part, slash it was the Lord the whole time keeping me up until the moment
Mhm.
that he revealed himself to me. And then um that's my whole God. It's if this video helps one cop
Mhm.
going through something, or potentially watches it the way I watched Jared Rustin's video,
Mhm.
that helped me immensely. I've never met that dude. Um, his video helped me through both of mine, especially that first one.
Mhm.
That 2 hour video on carry trainer. I got to meet Dave Grossman at a deal, and I got to shake his
Oh, cool.
and
That's
thank
awesome.
him for writing that book, and he signed my copy of On Combat.
That's awesome.
My buddy Rusty, man, I've got to thank him. I've got to. So if this video helps one cop,
Mhm.
and the only thing I want anybody to walk away from any interaction with me is I'm doing the best I can to love Jesus, man.
Yeah.
And in my family, and how I'm a cop, how I'm a SWAT dude, how I'm a narc, how I'm all the things. That's all it is. You know?
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're a great representative for Christ. I
I don't know.
mean, I mean,
Yeah.
you say
Yeah.
you don't feel you are, but
Yeah.
I think you are. And I know I've known a lot of cops, and I think it's just one of the things that we take defending and protecting others, um, and sometimes we lose sight of what's right in front of us and our family, and
Yeah.
in ways that we'd all defend and protect our families, but in the ways that we don't see.
Yeah.
And I strongly believe that there's spiritual warfare going around us every day.
Yep.
And seeing what's going on where we're at today. If you don't see that, I don't, I find it more hard to believe that you don't see that than you would see
No, that's it.
that. So,
It's everywhere, man, and on one end it is hard. There's plenty of days that you don't want to, but on
hmm
that end, man, being a dad is the coolest thing ever,
oh yeah,
and it's not that hard to get that pretty right. Like,
hmm
go love your kids, man. Go spend
hmm
time with them. Tell them you love them.
yeah,
Tell your girls they're pretty. Tell your boys you're proud of them. Tell your girls you're proud of them. Kids need dads and they need
hmm
moms, and I feel a burden for that, for both in my kids that the Lord has entrusted me with. Since all that, since stuff happened, we've had my boy now. My girls are the best thing. I grew up with three brothers, and when I found
hmm
out I was having girls, I was terrified. When I found out I was having a boy afterwards, I was like, oh no,
yeah,
what am
you
I going to
would,
do with a boy?
yeah,
Like, we're all tea parties, and
yeah,
it's nothing for me to go to work with my nails painted. Like, I don't care. It don't
yeah,
bother me. I got pretty little girls at home that paint my nails, dude.
yeah,
And we can fight about it. I'm good with
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Like,
That's
if you
all.
got a real problem with these nails, you can catch them for free 99, dude.
Yeah,
Like, it's all good. But um, just love your kids, man, and husbands love your wives, and just go get after it, man. That's how we make the biggest difference. All the chaos in the country, all the stuff.
hmm
If you're a cop, train hard, go to the range, go to the mats, never stop growing, never think you've arrived. And damn sure once you get into a position of leadership, don't forget what it was like
hmm
to be that's all my path now is, hopefully, I want to make sergeant.
hmm
I don't want to be a sergeant for the pay. I don't want to be a
hmm
sergeant for anything other than I want to be the good leaders that I've had, and not be the bad leaders that I've had for
hmm
other guys. And any promotion that I may or may not get before whatever the rest of my career looks like, it's all out of that, man. I wanna love and serve the people that I'm responsible for the way I've been loved and served. Everything I've
hmm
ever had, man, it was given to me by people God put in my life, whether I realize that or not. And I'm I, the only thing I brought to the table was probably weaponized ADD, man. That's it. I can think pretty quick, and that hurts me a lot of times, but it helps for some cop stuff.
Yeah.
I can shift gears pretty good, but that's just how God created me, and so I can't even claim that, man. I'm nothing without all of the people that have poured into me, whether they realize it or not. Whether
hmm
it was a video on YouTube, whether it was my buddy taking me to the range, whether it was whatever it was, Randy at the dojo, the good FTOs I had, the good sergeants I've had, the bad sergeants I've had.
hmm
That's all for good too, man.
Yeah,
I know exactly
you
how to
learn
not
a
be a
lot
leader,
from that.
and Van Buren is not without its share of bad leaders
Yeah.
at different times, at different levels, just like anywhere.
hmm
But I'm trying to take that, and to not emulate the bad stuff and to emulate the good stuff, and just be a good sarge, man. I've
Yeah.
had some good sarges. I want to be a good
We
sarge.
need more of those for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely, dude. Randy, I still call him sergeant. He retired. He was a lieutenant, but even after he was my lieutenant, he was still
Oh, yeah.
sarge. He's sarge, man. Like, my kids call him sarge. Like, when they see what they're, hey sarge, hey guys, Um, that's I think that's what it's about. Train hard, go to the range, love your family. You know, look for Christ, find Christ, man, and the rest of it'll just sort itself out, man. Talk to a buddy. That's a big thing too, man.
hmm
Having that brotherhood. Dave
hmm
Moore, I said that. Uh, the biggest lie ever told in law enforcement is that the thin blue line is a giant brotherhood.
Mm.
I disagree with that.
That what?
That the thin blue line,
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
that law enforcement is a brotherhood. Um, as a general rule, you will, through a portion of trauma bonding, you'll get tight with people,
hmm
but just because they're a cop doesn't make them your brother.
hmm
And I would strongly urge people to weigh that. But in that, what a lot of people I think will find is they do have real brothers and sisters there,
hmm
and to lean on those people, man, and call them up. Don't be afraid to talk about it. Nightmares are normal. I've had
hmm
nightmares. I've had nightmares my whole life. Technically, they just got real scary after I became a cop.
Yeah.
When I worked at the bank, I used to have nightmares that I'm trying to close the bank and there's a line forming and I can't.
Oh,
And
yeah,
my
yeah.
boss is calling. Now they're just quite a bit more graphic, but but being able to talk to a buddy, I've got Dave, I've got dudes on the SWAT team, my buddy Eric, my buddy Wes. I've got dudes that it's a normal thing and normal conversation to go, hey man, I had a weird dream last night, man.
Mhm.
I was up with nightmares. And most of the time when you do that, it's like, oh, dude, actually slept pretty good last night, but not before last night, man. I had a nightmare.
Mhm.
Just saying that, just having another dude get under that and shoulder that with you,
Mhm.
that does wonders where you're not just sitting there stewing on it. I think that's in the mental health side of stuff with guys. If we talked about stuff a lot more, I think we
Mhm.
realize we're all a lot more normal than we give
Mhm.
ourselves credit for.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't saying that, don't trust. I wasn't saying that. I was just saying the reality is there are people in your life
Mhm.
that you can trust, and then they would have your back. And
Mhm.
so let them have your back. Tell them what's up. Like,
Yeah.
hey, man, I'm not sleeping real good. Oh, dude, I don't sleep good sometimes either. Or even that ministry of presence of just, well, hey, man, call me.
Mhm.
Guys on the team know you got a sleepless night. Probably I'm having a sleepless night too.
Mhm.
We can play PlayStation. Like I'll drop some, we play some COD or something, dude. Like, we can hang out, sit by a fire pit, whatever, man. That going through that hard stuff together, is what forges those friends that are closer than a brother, man.
Mhm.
And I think if we're intentional with that, that's a drastically underused resource that the Lord has given us. Like
Mhm.
we've got people, and if you don't have people, man, go. I'm sure you got someone in your area, but go find them.
Mhm. You can find him.
Yeah, they're there, and build it. It doesn't happen on accident.
Yeah.
I'll never. I owe Dave Moore so much, man. I'll never be able to repay that dude. The only thing I'm 100% sure of, as long as I'm alive, that he's got a brother in me,
That's
and
awesome.
he's proven that he's my brother.
Mhm.
My son is little Dave.
That's something.
Yeah,
Yeah, you were
yeah,
talking last
and
time.
um, I'll never forget that dude, Rusty. I could never repay him.
Mhm.
Uh, those are two of my closest friends. Another guy that he's not a cop or anything. His name's Toby. The Lord kind of just put him in my life, and he's another psychopath. We do these crazy CrossFit workouts together, and we all go suffer together, and just do these just dumb. Most recently they ran I have not been able to because of my rib injury, but they ran a 205-mile relay race.
Mhm.
It's for no other reason
Wow.
than, hey, this sucks, and let's go do it. We're fine. And so we just go suffer and do terrible things together, and it's great. Like it's awesome. And
That's
it
awesome.
just that it's that forging that brotherhood's a big thing, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, man, it's great to have you here. Great to hear your story.
I appreciate it.
And I can't emphasize enough like how much I think we're in. There's a lot going on in our world
Yeah,
that we need to pay more attention to. So,
yeah.
but anyways, love you, man.
Dude, it was a
Glad you
pleasure to
came
meet you.
out,
Love you
and
too.
it was great to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was an honor. I appreciate it.
All right.